I'm a malevolent entity saturated with killing intent, yet I command the worship of billions. They have not only constructed a palace for me, their evil god, but willingly offer their very bodies as sacrifices. All of this is thanks to my connection with the great evil god system. I need only facilitate these sacrifices to grow in power. Fearing that my inexperience as a nascent malevolent entity might hinder me, the system bestowed upon me a novice gift package. However, the contents of that package left me dumbfounded. Is this truly what they call a grand gift? How utterly stingy and miserly. Following the system's guidance, I opened the sacrifice menu and a notification screen instantly manifested. The current novice mission: complete a single act of sacrifice. The reward: the ability to summon white bones. One must make honest use of the materials provided. Thus I sacrificed all the materials from the novice package. The very next moment I felt a surge of energy enshrouding my spirit form. The silver radiance of the altar seemed to intensify in brilliance. At that moment my cultivation advanced to the shadow rank. I glanced at the requirements for the next breakthrough and offered a faint smile. I must slay 10,000 souls? With my current capabilities, that is not an insurmountable task. Scanning the control panel, I immediately cast the white bone summoning technique. At once, a withered skeleton wreathed in ghostly green flame materialized before me. Before I could examine it closely, I sensed a disturbance outside the ghost domain. Using my divine sense to investigate, I discovered a serpent demon hunting a dozen wretched villagers. Exhausted and driven to the brink of collapse, these people were being mercilessly pursued. They lay on the ground in total despair. Among them, a youth named Shitou knelt toward the altar, murmuring, "Great divine lord, I offer my soul entirely. I beg of you, save my mother." I paid no heed to the child, my eyes were fixed solely upon the serpent. Excellent. The flesh and blood essence of this serpent is bountiful. With a mere thought, my two ghost servants appeared before the great serpent. Upon seeing the skeleton, the great serpent trembled uncontrollably, even forgetting its instinct to flee. The next instant, the skeleton seized the serpent's skull in a crushing grip. With a crisp, sharp crack, the skull was shattered, and the massive body collapsed heavily to the ground. I gathered the serpent's carcass into my ghost domain. I then looked toward the villagers through the eyes of the skeleton. Everyone there was gaunt, their skin sallow and clinging to their bones. There was not a shred of vitality left in them. I sensed their presence and discovered that their collective life essence did not even amount to a fraction of that of the great serpent. They were not worth consuming, yet it felt wasteful to simply leave them be. Perhaps I should attempt to extract some information from them instead. With that thought, I commanded the skeleton to scratch several lines of text into the ground. Who are you? Where is this place? Shitou stared fixedly at the writing on the ground, his eyes glowing with sudden intensity. Could this be the soul-binding pact of the Taisu? The boy swallowed hard, begging, "I beseech you, Lord, please accept my humble soul." Hearing this, I was momentarily stunned. What nonsense are you spouting? It seems we are not on the same wavelength at all. But observing their miserable state, I suddenly realized this must be an ancient world. The lives of refugees here are likely even more arduous than I could have imagined. A low literacy rate is only to be expected under such circumstances. I sighed. Very well, I shall grant them a path to survival, for I am not a demonic fiend who kills without restraint. I commanded the skeleton to pat Shitou on the head before summoning the two ghost servants back to the ghost realm. I proceeded to dismantle the carcass of the giant serpent, obtaining in total 8 portions of common blood, 12 portions of common flesh, and 9 common souls. Following that, I utilized the serpent's bones and essence blood to summon a bone serpent ghost servant. I carefully gauged its strength, discovering that a standard bone serpent possesses combat prowess equivalent to 3 ordinary skeletons. It appears the strength of a ghost servant is directly proportional to the quality of the materials used. Reflecting on this, I reached out to open the prize draw interface, wondering if I might secure a legendary gold tier reward. Closing my eyes, I pressed the button at random as the icons on the interface spun rapidly. Eventually, the display slowly came to a halt on an image of a tombstone. Congratulations on obtaining the secret realm of the undead. The living dead. The very next moment, the tombstone appeared in the corner beside the altar, bearing an inscription of guidance. You may enter the secret realm by touching the tombstone of the dead. As the level up and reward draw concluded, a new subquest appeared: explore the secret realm of the undead. Exploration progress. The mission reward shall be determined by the exploration rate. Gazing at this task, my brows furrowed deeply. This secret realm appeared perilous at a mere glance. Thus, I commanded the bone serpent to enter the secret realm first. Upon its arrival, the sight that met my eyes left me utterly dumbstruck. It was a desolate, modern apartment complex, littered with all manner of zombies. I observed the scene with great caution, concluding that there was both good news and bad news. The bad news was that these zombies would ferociously tear apart any living creature. The good news was that the bone serpent was not a living being. Suddenly, a thought flashed through my mind: could these zombies be converted into raw materials? With that thought, I took action. I directed the bone serpent to decapitate a zombie and drag it out of the secret realm. Then, the ghost fire surged forward, breaking the corpse down piece by piece. At that moment, the system issued a notification: obtained common flesh X.9 and common bones X.9. This discovery made my eyes light up. As it turned out, it was indeed possible. If that were the case, would this secret realm not become an infinite source of energy for me? Filled with motivation, I immediately dispatched all 3 of my ghost thralls into the secret realm to labor. Meanwhile, outside the ghost domain, the refugees remained frozen in place, not daring to draw a full breath. The widow Li held her son Shitou and wept bitterly. Shitou rubbed his head and instantly realized from this day forward he belonged to Lord Tasui. Shitou comforted the widow Li and proceeded to recount what had just transpired to the other refugees. Uncles, elders, I have pledged my soul to Lord Tasui. Not only did he refrain from harming me, but he also saved us all. At once the crowd began to murmur in agitation. They remained deeply fearful of Tasui. Seeing this, Shitou interrupted their discussion. I know you all fear Tasui, but I cannot forget the debt of gratitude I owe. If not for Lord Tasui, we would have already become sustenance for the serpent demon. He has claimed my soul. I must acknowledge him as my master. With those words, he placed his protective talisman upon the altar. I possess nothing of great value to offer as a tribute. I humbly offer this protective talisman to Lord Tasui. He then bowed and Zhang Dezu, standing among the crowd, finally came to a realization. If the immortals can protect the mortals, then the evil spirits can protect us as well. Thus, there is truly no difference between the two. Even in the depths of hell, there are immortals in command, and the souls of the departed remain under their jurisdiction. A burly man slapped his thigh, suggesting that the entity within the forest of the dead must be a deity of the netherworld. The others, hearing this, were swayed by his words. They placed their belongings upon the altar and followed the lead of the man named Stone and kneeling. After a single night, I had harvested over 200 units of raw materials. The yield was quite substantial. I utilized the summon white bone skill, manifesting 6 skeletons and 1 ghost tiger. I dispatched them all into the secret realm to labor, leaving only 1 skeleton and the ghost fire behind. Following this, I opened the novice tutorial interface. Upon accepting the second beginner quest, I commanded my 2 ghost servants to depart the ghost realm, intending to gather common wood to complete the objective. No sooner had I stepped out of the ghost realm than I saw a pile of debris scattered upon the altar. The group of refugees from last night remained there, seemingly gathered around a stone pot of unknown origin, attempting to cook something. One of them immediately spotted the skeletal servant and cried out, "The Lord has manifested! Quickly kneel and greet the Lord." Moments later, the crowd prostrated themselves before the skeletal servant, kowtowing and murmuring prayers. We thank the Lord for his mercy upon us lowly wretches. We thank the Lord for his protection. Witnessing this scene, I was speechless. What exactly are you people doing? But as they bowed low to the ground with no further obstruction, I finally caught sight of what the refugees were boiling. Within the murky, turbid water floated a few withered leaves, while beneath them lay several beetles, emitting a smell both fishy and astringent. I felt a wave of nausea, yet immediately afterward my emotions became complex. In their moment of deepest hunger and thirst, these people had offered their most precious sustenance to one they called an evil spirit. How should I put this? The sensation is truly peculiar. Just as I was caught in these reflections, the system abruptly interrupted me. Congratulations, you have gained 12 followers. Nurturing believers and fattening up one's food reserves is a path that every great evil god must tread. You have taken a significant step forward on the path to becoming a great evil god. I raised an eyebrow. Since they have chosen to follow me, it is only reasonable for them to work like oxen and horses for my benefit, is it not? The skeletons and bone serpents are already occupied with clearing the instance dungeon. I am currently severely lacking in manpower to chop wood and hew stone. Having made my decision, I began to browse the shop menu. Currently, only 5 types of items are unlocked. I exchanged 12 blood addiction pills and 12 flesh and blood pills, intending to distribute 1 of each to every refugee. Yet when the refugees laid eyes on those foul-smelling, reeking pills, they dared not swallow them. Only Shitou, without a moment of hesitation, tossed the 2 medicinal pills into his mouth. Seeing this, Li Daju snatched the 2 pills before him and shoved them into his mouth as well. Damn it all, surely this is better than eating leaves and insects. I was on the brink of starvation just moments ago, but now, having swallowed this pill, a warmth has surged through my belly, and my trembling legs have finally steadied. Before the words had even left his lips, Li Daju's dry, straw-like hair began to grow rapidly, and his gaunt frame started to fill out. He clenched his fists in disbelief, clearly sensing the raw power surging through his muscles. Li Daju cried out in excitement, "Divine grace! This is truly an immortal elixir." Upon hearing this, the others no longer hesitated and scrambled to grab the pills, stuffing them into their mouths. Instantly, the sounds of coughing and gasps of amazement filled the air around the stone cauldron. The loose, withered skin of the refugees gradually tightened, and their sunken cheeks began to regain a healthy flush of color. Yet at that very moment, the phantom image of a spectral saber shimmering with a golden light manifested above Shitou's head. Amidst the blurred movements of the saber, one could faintly hear the clashing of iron and the echoes of a bloodthirsty battle cry. The scene unfolding before me left me momentarily stunned. What exactly is this boy? To think he could trigger a heaven and earth phenomenon such as this? Could it be that you are the true protagonist of this story? After a long while, the spectral saber silhouette above the boy's head slowly dissipated. Shitou unconsciously clenched his fists, his bones emitting a crisp, rhythmic cracking sound. The youth, who was once as frail as a dried twig, now possessed bulging muscles and prominent veins. He looked every bit like a hulking giant. I probed slightly, discovering that the flesh and blood energy of the villagers had surged significantly. Each villager had generally reached a level of 2, but this boy's transformation was even more extraordinary. He alone possessed energy equivalent to 6 parts of flesh and blood essence. I secretly took note of the boy and instructed the ghost fire skeleton to distribute tools to everyone. Once the tools were handed out, I had the skeleton strike a tree with several powerful blows. Moments later, the massive tree collapsed with a crash. The ghost fire moved in perfect coordination to split the trunk, separating the raw lumber. It was only then that the villagers snapped out of their stupor. Shitou stepped forward and asked, "Great One, do you require us to fell trees? I immediately signaled the skeleton to give Shitou a thumbs up. This boy possesses excellent comprehension and is quite sharp. He is truly a promising seed for manual labor. The skeleton's affirmation immediately provided a great surge of motivation for Shitou. He picked up an axe from the ground and headed toward another large tree with unwavering focus. Seeing this, Li Daju hurriedly hoisted his own axe. "Great One, leave it all to me. I was a woodcutter in our village before. Felling trees is my area of expertise." A burly man with a dark complexion chimed in as well. As if following suit, with the 2 men leading the way, the rest of the villagers scrambled to grab their tools and rush toward the trees. Witnessing the scene before me, I was profoundly satisfied. Very good, they possess excellent spirit. Having suddenly gained so many premium laborers, the resources I exchanged for those medicinal pills were not spent in vain. Subsequently, I commanded the skeleton to fell 5 trees and gather 5 large stones. I prepared to return to the ghost domain and retrieve the common ores I had collected, just enough to unlock the water well, and complete the next phase of the beginner's tutorial. Just as I was returning to the ghost domain, several metallic whistling sounds suddenly tore through the air from within the forest, followed immediately by a series of crisp snapping noises. I saw Shitou swing his axe horizontally into the trunk of a tree, and a sharp blade aura instantly swept through, felling a large patch of trees. Shitou dropped his axe and stared at his own palms, too stunned for words. Was this truly his own power? Ever since he had consumed the medicinal pill earlier, a foreign surge of power had been circulating within his body, and countless cultivation techniques and combat arts had automatically manifested in his mind. Old Zhao, being the eldest and most knowledgeable, discerned the truth at a single glance, guiding qi into the body, the manifestation of spiritual energy. "Shitou, you have entered the Jianxian realm. You have become a cultivator." The villagers were deeply shaken upon hearing this. A cultivator, did this not mean that Shitou was now like the immortals in White Jade City? Shidou's heart trembled with excitement. This must be the power bestowed upon me by the Great Lord. He collapsed onto his knees at the spot where the skeleton had vanished. "Shitou thanks the Great Lord for this divine power. I swear to serve you for all eternity." The others reverently knelt down once more. "I, Li Daju, vow to be a beast of burden for the Great Lord in this life. I swear the same." At this moment, I emerged from the ghost domain with the common ores, only to be struck speechless as I found these people kowtowing to me again. What is the meaning of this? They cannot even finish felling a few trees without causing a scene. I turned my back for but a moment, and yet they are kneeling again. Just as I was about to urge my labor force onward, my sharp eyes caught sight of a piece of wood emitting a green glow, hidden among the common logs. My gaze locked onto it, and the system interface materialized. Jade core of the emerald. Once consumed, it can nourish wood attribute spirit roots below the 5th grade. It can also be used to unlock structures such as the Spirit Field Herb Garden. I commanded the skeleton to pick up that piece of cyan wood. Impressive, I am still a mere novice, yet Tasui has already brought me a 5th grade heaven and earth treasure? Is this sudden surge of wealth truly real? I felt incredibly surreal, subconsciously scanning the surrounding environment. A place with abundant wood attribute energy is limited to this forest of the dead? I wore a look of suspicion. But this location is merely the edge of the forest of the dead, where the weeds are pathetically sparse. To claim this place has abundant wood attribute energy feels like an insult to my intelligence. If the environment is not the issue, then the problem must lie with these villagers. Thinking of this, I shifted my perspective to the skeleton, observing the group of villagers one by one. I must see which thick-browed, large-eyed fellow brought me such a massive surprise. After some questioning, Li Daju nervously recounted the origins of this piece of wood. I wanted to scold them even more, to find a 5th grade heaven and earth treasure just by chopping down a tree. They truly are men of great talent. After collecting the emerald jade marrow, I pondered for a moment. One must reward those who make breakthrough contributions. These are all production tools for my own cause. I must focus on cultivating them in the future. Thus, I exchanged for 2 blood addict pills and 2 flesh and blood pills, handing them to Shitou and Li Daju respectively. Without the slightest hesitation, the 2 swallowed the medicinal pills, whereupon Shitou's flesh and blood energy increased by slightly more than 8 parts, while Li Daju's increased by approximately 2 parts. This scene immediately drew the admiration of the other villagers, and a burning fighting spirit ignited in their eyes, each secretly vowing to work even harder for the Lord. Over the next 7 days, my reclamation endeavors proceeded with great fervor. The materials in my storage had already surpassed a 4-digit count. During those few days, I finished constructing the water well, completed the second task of the novice tutorial, and received 2 blocks of heaven-mending stone. Looking at the introduction of the heaven-mending stone, my eyes listed high-quality goods, a type of universal material, capable of substituting for any material below the 8th grade. Subsequently, I turned my gaze toward the Hutu spirit cannon. With this, the majority of crops can be harvested within a single day after being accelerated in growth, directly resolving the food supply issue and allowing for the cultivation of other various spirit herbs and fungi. I see this as a profitable investment. With my decision made, I initiated the construction, and a plot of land instantly manifested upon the empty space. Just then, Li Daju offered me a tribute. I took it to inspect, only to realize it was a third-grade blood-veined wood. This discovery compelled me to view him with newfound importance. Although its grade does not match the emerald jade marrow, it serves as proof that this lad's fortunes have truly turned. With a wave of my hand, I rewarded him with one of every type of medicinal pill. Li Daju grinned from ear to ear. He boasted to the villagers for a while before triumphantly swallowing the pills. At that moment, the mission board began to flicker. A side quest: demonic entities are coveting the food reserves you have left unguarded. Proceed to Stonelamp Village to display the might of the evil god and punish the thieves. The quest requires the slaying of the demons, with rewards determined by the outcome of the mission. I did not expect a side quest to trigger so soon. Knowing little of these demons, I decided that caution must take precedence. With that thought, I stirred my focus, and countless materials surged from the storehouse, pouring into the white bone altar. The colossal skull atop the altar shuddered violently, and within its eye sockets, flashes of blood-red, malevolent light ignited. An icy, oppressive aura suddenly intensified, swirling around my entire body. Simultaneously, I felt my power surging at an astonishing speed. In a heartbeat, the range of my ghost domain expanded dozens of times over, and my abilities were greatly enhanced. Now I have the power to cast illusions upon any creature that enters my ghost domain, and I have gained the authority to manipulate ghost bones, unlocking 10 additional slots for ghost servants and 1 slot for a ghost attendant. The limit for bone consumption in the white bone summoning has increased to 50 billion units. The greater the consumption, the more formidable the ghost servant will be. This means I can now summon significantly more powerful servants. I slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air. Once the roiling energy within me had stabilized, I directed my attention back to the side quest. I rubbed my temples, uncertain of the best approach to fulfill the mission requirements. Then a sudden realization sparked within my mind. I am the master now. Surely it is the subordinates who should be doing the heavy lifting. Stone's talent is exceptionally high. If I simply provide him with a few weapons, would that not suffice? With this in mind, I immediately purchased an ancient sword and ancient armor from the shop, then crafted a wooden talisman using the blood-veined wood. I sealed the white bone summoning technique within it, and maximized the summoning materials to ensure Stone would not be defeated by the demonic entities. Elsewhere, at the edge of the dead man's forest, Stone was swinging his sword with vigor, felling trees. At that exact moment, the light surrounding him suddenly dimmed. The chatter of the villagers and the sounds of tools striking wood drifted away, becoming distant and faint. Not long after, a pale white silhouette slowly manifested before Stone. With just a single glance, he realized that this was indeed the great deity. Without a moment's hesitation, he prostrated himself, his forehead pressing firmly against the void. "Greetings, great deity. I have realized my transgressions," he said, carefully choosing his words to maintain his reverent stature. At this moment, demons were running rampant, bringing destruction across the 9 provinces. I foresee that Shitou village is about to suffer a demonic calamity, but I feel pity for the suffering of the common people. Are you willing to eliminate these demons and evil spirits on my behalf? Upon hearing this, the look in Shitou's eyes turned resolute. He replied that even if he were to die 10,000 times, he would not hesitate. As soon as he finished speaking, the surrounding darkness retreated like an ebbing tide, sunlight once again cascaded down, and the sounds of the villagers returned to clarity. Shitou remained kneeling, though several items had appeared beside his hand. He carefully tucked them away before consuming the 2 medicinal pills. A familiar warmth immediately radiated throughout his entire body. His strength increased significantly, and he proceeded to convey my decree to those who remained with him. Upon hearing his words, a profound sense of awe filled their hearts. The widow Li hurriedly embraced her son and declared, "Since you are going, you must slaughter every last demon. Do not let the great deity lose face. If you dare to return with even a single hair missing, I will peel the skin right off you." Shitou's eyes grew hot with emotion, and he nodded firmly. "Mother, I understand." Li Daju stepped forward from the crowd, saying, "Shitou, I am strong and broad-shouldered. I shall accompany you. I can provide assistance along the way." A swarthy, burly man followed him, adding, "I shall join as well." And so, the 3 of them shouldered their weapons and raced toward Shitou village. On the other side, Li Daju and his companions quickly arrived at their destination. The villagers recognized them as people from the neighboring Daliang village. Thus, they welcomed them into the settlement. Along the way, Shitou relayed my words to the villagers. Yet they were fundamentally skeptical, for Shitou village was currently shielded by a white jade barrier. The immortals within that city were all extraordinarily powerful. Consequently, they believed it was impossible for any demonic entities to manifest here. However, on the 3rd day after the trio arrived at the village, 2 youths came sprinting in panic toward Lu Er's house. "Uncle Lu, something terrible has happened. A snake demon has abducted the Wu family's child right beneath the ancient locust tree at the east end of the village." Upon hearing this, Lu Er was so terrified he nearly wet himself. He frantically called for the villagers to help. In an instant, the villagers were thrown into a state of panic, clutching hoes and shovels, yet no one dared to venture toward the eastern end of the village. Just as the chaos reached its peak, Shitou and his two companions, fully equipped, sprinted toward the locust tree. At the foot of the ancient tree, a black serpent as thick as a water barrel was coiled around the trunk. The child of the Wu clan was suspended in midair, ensnared by the serpent's massive body. His small face turned a ghastly shade of purple, and he appeared to be on the verge of drawing his final breath. The giant serpent gloated, preparing to swallow the child whole. Humanity, as expected, produces children who are far more succulent, it hissed. Brother, you have brought a dozen snake demons to a village of this size. How is there enough for all of us to feast upon? Upon arriving, Shitou let out a thunderous roar, his body launching forward like a piercing blade. Hearing the cry, the black serpent whipped its head around, eyes burning with malevolent light. Here was another snack that had delivered itself to his doorstep. This brat looks like he has honed his body well. He will surely be crisp and tender. With those words, the black serpent lunged towards Shitou with blinding speed. Witnessing this scene, the villagers gasped in terror. The man leading the group gripped his robes tightly, his heart leaping into his throat. Yet in the following instant, everyone stood frozen in disbelief. Shitou did not retreat but advanced, his antique blade releasing a frigid sword aura as he swept it across the air. The black serpent's head fell to the ground with a dull thud. Observing this, the entirety of Shiding village fell into a deathly silence. It was a long time before one villager spoke in a trembling voice. That snake demon was thicker than a water vat, yet Shitou slew it with a single strike. That flash of sword light, it is exactly like the tales the gentleman in the city tell of cultivators slays demons. Could he truly be an immortal descended from the heavens? Immediately thereafter, sounds of awe and wonder erupted from every corner. The villagers looked at Shitou, their gaze shifting from suspicion to profound reverence. Beneath the great locust tree, the scent of the snake demon's blood was carried far away by the wind. Shitou took note of the direction from which the stench emanated, detecting the faint sound of many slithering creatures closing in on Shiding village. Sensing the situation, the villagers' nerves, which had only just begun to settle, tightened once more like a bowstring. One person looked toward the forest, their face drained of all color. What is that? The foliage in the forest shook violently as a horde of black serpents instantly surrounded the village. And at the head of the serpent ranks, a snake, far more massive than the one before, slowly emerged. Its eyes were fixed solely upon Shitou within the village. A lowly first-ranked chi-refining cultivator dares to lay a hand on the subordinates of Nisi Shi. I have reigned over the Huguang Hills for these many years, and you are the first to provoke me. At this moment, Shitou gripped his blade tightly, cold sweat instantly soaking his back. The aura radiating from this serpent was vastly more powerful than the previous one. He could clearly perceive that the blood energy of this snake demon was at least 10 times his own. The snake demon sniffed the air toward Shitou, saying, "Your blood energy is remarkably rich. Devouring you will serve both to avenge my kin and to nourish my own body." Before the words had even faded, it swung its massive tail with tremendous force. A deafening roar slammed into the earthen wall beside the village. The wall collapsed instantly. Shitou gritted his teeth, bracing his sword across his chest, refusing to retreat a single step. "I am under the protection of a god. Do you dare lay a hand on me?" Nisi Shi let out a booming laugh, his tone heavy with contempt. "There are no gods in this world, only pathetic demons and monsters that are not fit to be mentioned. If I say you are to die, you shall die. Even the heavens themselves cannot save you now." Having said that, it opened its maw, a cavernous, blood-red abyss, and a foul-smelling gust of wind surged toward Shitou, while dozens of black serpents simultaneously lunged at the villagers. As it appeared Shitou was about to be swallowed by the giant serpent, a sudden warmth radiated from deep within his chest. A wooden plaque carved with blood-red runes flew from his tunic, hovering in midair and emitting a faint silver radiance. In an instant, a sinister wind arose, and a deathly aura, black as ink spilled into water, poured from the plaque, slithering across the ground. Witnessing the sight before it, Nisi Shi instinctively sensed a lethal threat, yet it continued to feign arrogance. "What lowly creature is playing at being a deity? I shall devour you all." Finishing its taunt, the serpent demon stretched its jaw to the limit, and the gale from its throat rushed violently towards Shitou. But as the wind approached the perimeter of the plaque's light, it was shattered and dissipated by the deathly aura. At the very moment the deathly aura touched the earth, a white skeleton slowly emerged from within the shimmering glow. The very next second, all motion in Shiding village seemed to grind to a halt. The howling of the serpent demon ceased, and the screams of the villagers fell into an eerie silence. Deep within its mind, Nisi Shi screamed in terror, realizing this was a Tazui. Its father had once warned that the Tazui were the most peculiar existences in the world, absolute entities that no ordinary creature could withstand. They could infect, assimilate, and even enslave all living beings. If one were ever to encounter them, the only path to survival was flight. Nisi Shi had disregarded those words, but now it finally understood that a child should heed their father's counsel. Gone was its arrogance. Nisi Shi coiled its body, shivering uncontrollably. On the other side, Li Daju and the dark-faced man watched from afar, their expressions filled with joy and excitement at the sight of the skeleton. The two men knelt prostrate on the ground, shouting in reverence, "We pay our respects to the Lord Deity." The people of Shidong village were left in profound shock. Was this truly the deity they had spoken of? Merely by standing there, it had suppressed dozens of demons. The might of a true deity was terrifying indeed. The majority of the villagers hurriedly knelt and bowed in follow. Li Daiju muttered something, and the crowd followed suit without question. Within the throng, a young girl's eyes suddenly ignited with brilliance. She caught a glimpse of a vast ethereal figure looming behind the skeleton, and Hong Ling whispered to herself, "Is that truly a deity? If the opportunity arises, I must venture into the deadwood forest to seek an audience with him." At the same time, I commanded the skeleton to sweep its gaze across the surroundings, instantly grasping the gravity of the situation. It seems this boy has performed quite well. He managed to slay a snake demon relying solely on his own strength. This child is worthy of focused cultivation. Both his innate talent and temperament are excellent. He is a promising seed for righteous deeds. I patted the child's head, channeling a surge of power into him. Ni Sashi observed that I was paying it no mind at all. Its heart surged with wild delight, thinking that the evil entity clearly preferred human flesh. This was truly good news. With this thought, it shrank back further, hoping only to slip away quickly the moment I began the slaughter of these humans. But Ni Sashi's fervent wish would not come to fruition. It watched in confusion as I ignored the humans before me and instead began to stride directly toward it. I looked down upon the pile of snake demons, finding them utterly pathetic. Most of the snake demons possessed a vital energy signature of only a few dozen, with even the largest among them not exceeding 200. Nevertheless, gathering them all would still provide a significant stock of materials for my reserves. With this in mind, I commanded the skeleton to raise its hand. Seeing this, Nisashi begged frantically, "Spare my life, Great One. This lowly demon is young and unaware that this territory belongs to you. I did not intend to offend you. Please grant this lowly one a chance to live. I am willing to serve you as a beast of burden." However, I ignored the snake demon's pleas and continued my steady advance. Ni Sishi grew even more panicked. "Great One, my father is Ni Heilong of Huguang Hill. He has already reached the peak of the second rank. If you spare my life, I am willing to lead you to Huguang Hill. The flesh and blood of my father will surely assist you in ascending to a new level of cultivation." A strange expression crossed my face, truly a most filial son. Without a moment's hesitation, the skeleton's hand swung, its bony fingers piercing the snake demon's skull. As the necrotic aura invaded its body, the terrified gaze of Nisashi gradually lost its light, and finally it ceased to breathe entirely. I did not pause for even a second. Commanding the skeleton's arm to lash out, the death energy coalescing in my palm surged instantly. In the span of a few breaths, the dozens of black serpents that had surrounded the village were reduced to mere corpses. The villagers of Shi village stared in absolute stupor. Was this truly the power of a divine being? Not a single ounce of effort was spent to eradicate those demons. I scanned the field of demon remains, then turned my gaze toward two, whose face was filled with fervent devotion. It seems there will be no need for concern from here on out. This pile of precious materials scattered across the ground will surely be brought back to me by this boy. With that, I controlled the skeleton to turn and fly toward the floating blood-patterned wooden tablet. As the skeleton drew near, the wooden tablet transformed into a stream of black mist and merged into it. The radiance of the tablet gradually receded as it flew back into Tu's grasp. Witnessing this scene, the villagers erupted into thunderous cheers. There truly is a divine being protecting us, even helping us slay the demons. From now on, we need fear the demons no more. At this moment, To gripped the wooden tablet tightly. The mission was complete, and the people of Shi village were now safe. It was time to return to the forest of the dead and report to the great divine lord. He clasped his hands toward the villagers and spoke, "Uncles, aunts, the demon threat has been eradicated. I must now return to the forest of the dead." No sooner had the words left his lips than Hong Ling hurried through the crowd to block Tu's path. "I want to go with you." The villagers were stunned upon hearing this. Someone quickly tugged at her sleeve. "Hong Ling, have you lost your mind? Next year you are supposed to head to the Bayou sect. Once you master the arts there, you will become an immortal master yourself. There will be no reason to fear demons then." However, Hong Ling's father immediately interrupted the man. "Hong Ling will not be going to the Bayou sect anymore. The protection offered by the Bayou immortals is unreliable. Only the power of the great divine lord is true. Not only my daughter, but I also wish to pay respects to the great divine lord." At this moment, another villager stepped forward. "Tu, I also wish to accompany you." Another person chimed in, echoing the sentiment. In the blink of an eye, more than half of the villagers had surrounded them. "Tu, take us with you. We want to go to the forest of the dead to serve the great divine lord." However, a small minority remained resolute in their refusal. Some still placed their faith in the Bayou immortals, while others could not bear to abandon their ancestral lands. Li Daju witnessed it all. He smiled and patted Tu on the shoulder. "It seems there are quite a few who wish to follow us back. Let us not delay any further. We should depart as soon as possible. We must not keep the great divine one waiting." The dark-faced man stepped forward in a rush. "We still have to carry these snake demons with us. There are many of us now. Everyone lend a hand." As soon as those words were spoken, the entire Shi village immediately busied itself. At the same time, I had already returned to the Ghost Realm. The first thing I did was open the architecture interface and initiate the construction of the Yin Wind Forest and the I House Stone Mine. The following second, hundreds of twisted ancient trees sprouted and flourished within the Dead Men's Forest. In another clearing, countless massive boulders surged to form a high hill, the peak of which cracked open to reveal a cavern entrance. Both special structures had been successfully completed. Several days later, Shitou returned, leading the villagers of Shi Village. I immediately settled the quest, receiving an Earth-grade draw ticket as my reward. In high spirits, I first stored the ticket in my inventory. Afterward, I cast my gaze upon the newly arrived villagers. Only by assigning tasks to the villagers early can we begin producing resources promptly. Thinking of this, I waved my hand. Countless blood addiction pills and flesh meat pills flew out from the ghost realm. They landed in the hands of the villagers, but upon seeing the pills, the villagers dared not consume them at all. Only Hong Ling, upon receiving the medicinal pill, saw the admiration and desire in the eyes of the Daliang villagers. The young girl pondered for a moment before looking toward Shitou. Is this the grace from the divine that you spoke of along the way? Shitou nodded. Indeed, eat quickly, these are items of great quality. Hearing this, Hong Ling swallowed the foul-smelling pill without hesitation. Seeing this, the rest of the group followed suit and began to eat. The moment the medicinal pills entered their bellies, the gaunt frames of the villagers filled out, visible to the naked eye, and Hong Ling's reaction was the most profound. Rays of sunset glow pierced through the gloomy mist of the dead men's forest, accompanied by the clear chirping songs of birds. From within the ghost realm, I watched those rays of sunset with great interest. Another heaven and earth phenomenon. Could it be that in the setting of this world, those capable of triggering such manifestations are merely common occurrences? I did not expect this young girl to possess such potential. After some consideration, I decided that since she is a seed of talent, she deserves my attention. Thus, I produced 4 more medicinal elixirs and placed them into Hong Lin's hands. Hong Lin swallowed all 4 pills, and the power surging within her body soared once more. Deep within the nether, she gained an indescribable epiphany regarding cultivation and spiritual energy. She cast her gaze toward the white figure hovering in the void. Hong Ling keenly observed that while everyone else was immersed in the joy of their physical recovery, no one else took notice of the white shadow, even though that figure remained suspended in midair. It seemed that ordinary people were not destined to behold the visage of a deity, yet she possessed that unique affinity. Because of this discovery, Hong Ling felt a secret quiet joy. Sensing the girl's gaze, I raised an eyebrow in surprise. You can see me? Hearing this, Hong Ling knelt down without the slightest hesitation. Your innate talent is extraordinary, and your disposition is transcendent. You shall surely become a great talent in this world. I expect you to dedicate yourself to your cultivation, laboring day and night without pause. Do not tarnish my reputation. Hong Ling bowed her head immediately. Your will be done, my lord. As she stood up, she looked at me with eager anticipation. Is there anything we may do for you now, my lord? I was taken aback that Hong Ling was so eager to serve as a beast of burden. Consequently, I commanded the ghost fire to dismantle the carcass of a snake demon. I divided the meat into dozens of portions, instructing them to first eat their fill, and once their strength had returned, they were to labor in the forest and the stone mines, serving with full devotion and effort. Hong Lin was stunned into silence by my command. The Lord actually allows us to eat our fill before working, and there are not even set quotas for our labor. Is there truly such a benevolent deity in this world? The villagers of Daliang received the fresh meat and immediately began to cook. The villagers of Shideng also stepped forward to assist. Before long, a rich, savory aroma began to drift from the stone cauldrons. In an instant, all the villagers of Shading were overcome with emotion. They never realized that the scent of meat could be so divine. And as for that snow-white rice, how could such a grain even be cultivated? At this moment, Village Chief Li placed his hands on his hips and shouted, "Stop your chattering. Once you have finished eating, go to work at once." Do not. Hearing this, the villagers nodded in unison and began to devour the food ravenously. Once everyone had their fill, I opened the control panels for both the Yin Wind Cave and the Hao Mine, assigning each new villager to their respective tasks. With these matters settled, I began to organize the spoils harvested from this side quest. First, I dismantled the old bone serpent, using 49 portions of its remains and essence blood to summon a new ghost tiger bone serpent. According to the conversion ratio of remains, this new bone serpent possesses the strength of 1,000 ordinary bones, making it the most formidable combat force currently under my command. At the same time, the shop synchronized and unlocked new items. The remaining 5 items, including the soul-capturing pill, were upgraded to the 2nd rank. Each of these requires 5 corresponding materials to exchange. I realized then that half a month of diligent land development is not even worth the value of slaying a few colossal demonic beasts. It seems I must find an opportunity to claim the entire Arc Lake Hill for myself. By that time, the sacrifice progress for the shadow level reward should also be complete. I silently steeled my resolve, preparing to let my followers rest for 2 days. Afterward, I would have Shitou and Hong Ling lead the team to eradicate the snake demon's nest directly. Thinking of this, I turned my gaze toward the Earthgrade lottery ticket. I initiated the draw, and countless high-level items flashed across the screen in rapid succession. Finally, the display settled on a structure exuding an aura of malevolent mystery. In the blink of an eye, it manifested beside the white bone altar, a notification announcing the unlocking of a special structure, the General Summoning Platform. The first function, 10,000 spirits return to the new realm, can gradually enhance the strength of evil entities within conventional structures. The second function, Withered Bone Knocking Gate command, allows one to sacrifice a portion of a target's original essence to temporarily manipulate them. As this is your first time unlocking a special structure, you have been granted 1 free use of the Withered Bone Knocking Gate command. I observed the General Summoning Platform for a moment. I thought to myself that it truly lives up to its status as a special structure. To possess 2 such unique abilities is remarkable. However, the second ability carries a degree of risk. If the summoned target exceeds the 6th rank and cannot be restrained by the general summoning platform, it would be no different than courting death. It seems I must be cautious when using it in the future, though there is no reason to hesitate regarding the free attempt granted by the system. With that, I stopped overthinking and immediately activated the Withered Bone Knocking Gate command. The next second, a ghostly blue flame flared 3 feet high atop the bone pillar. A gray shadow emerged within the flames. A faint, shrill squeaking sound emanated from the fire. Immediately afterward, a black fissure cracked open along one of the platform's pillars and a small rat darted out from the gap. Who has such a death wish daring to drag me, the great rat, to this wretched place? The rat's terror-filled eyes darted around, finally settling on my spiritual form, its shrill voice dripping with arrogance. So you are the one who orchestrated this, are you? To dare drag this old rodent out of his burrow, you are truly tired of living. At that moment, I looked at the mouse demon, no larger than a peanut, and could not help but find it amusing. Thus, I intentionally adopted a frigid tone to provoke it. A mere mouse spirit, yet you are quite arrogant, are you not? Upon hearing this, the little mouse stood on its hind legs and tilted its head back to shriek. You are the mouse spirit. Your entire family are mouse spirits. How dare you compare those lowly beasts to me? I am the demonic rat of the void. Hearing this, I raised my eyebrows in surprise. What on earth is a demon to me? I am a fallen god. Upon hearing me claim the title of a fallen god, the mouse burst into laughter. A fallen god, how interesting. As for me, I have lived for 300 years, and this is the first time I have seen a lowly creature with sentience. But for a tiny thing like you to dare call yourself a god, your courage is not small at all. Having said that, it attempted to retreat 2 steps, only to discover it could not move in the slightest. Sensing a bad omen, the mouse struggled frantically, but remained completely immobilized. At this moment, a trace of panic finally surfaced in its eyes. You wretch, what dark arts did you use to restrain me? Hearing this, the corner of my mouth curled upward. I forgot to inform you, from the moment you were summoned here, you already belonged to me. The mouse was stunned, looking down at the black mist entwining its claws, then up at the green flame atop the summoning altar, its expression gradually crumbling. It realized instantly that the curse power within those flames was faintly resonating with the black mist. Damn it, you played dirty. I refused to acknowledge this wretched binding. Having said that, it attempted to mobilize its demonic energy. Dark green currents of energy emerged from the mouse's body, but it soon discovered that half of the demonic energy it had channeled was immediately absorbed by the black mist. After a long struggle, the mouse finally slumped in defeat. It tucked its tail between its legs, its crimson eyes filled with deep resentment. A long while later, as the black mist slowly dissipated, I heard the system notification. You have obtained a 5th rank spirit beast, the Shadow Rat. Seeing this, I stared wide-eyed at the little mouse. I did not expect that a tiny demon like you would possess such considerable strength. The Shadow Rat listened to me, its face contorting into an incredibly unsightly expression. And it emphasized once more this old rodent is not a demon. Regarding the demon, I chose not to respond to its taunts and instead shifted the subject. Regardless, you belong to me now. Why not assist me with some tasks? I guarantee you a life of wealth and prosperity. Having said that, I produced 2 second-tier blood flesh pills. Seeing this, Nathu simply collapsed onto the ground. Did he actually think he could order an elder around? Don't even dream of it. I shall remain right here. What could you possibly do to me? I will frustrate you to death. Confronted with such mockery, I felt not a flicker of anger. After all, I never expected that mere blood flesh pills would be enough to manipulate a 5th-tier spirit beast. Progress must be gradual. If Nathu refuses to work for now, using him as a source of amusement is not a bad alternative. Thus, for the next 3 days, I lounged idly within the ghost domain, watching the new villagers toil away to gather resources. As the stockpiles grew steadily, I felt a deep sense of satisfaction. During these 3 days, Hong Lin fully demonstrated her innate talent for management. From the distribution of supplies to over 100 people, to coordinating rest schedules and work shifts, she managed everything with remarkable precision. Her efforts saved me a tremendous amount of labor. Consequently, I have officially appointed her as the acting village chief. Early on the 4th day, I departed the ghost domain to inspect the ongoing work. Just as I approached the forest, I felt something tugging at my feet. Looking down, I realized it was Nathu. The small rat's tail hung low, yet its face still wore that stubborn, arrogant expression. That desolate place was deathly boring. I came out for some fresh air. Surely you cannot forbid that? A faint smirk played on my lips, and without refusal, I continued my stroll. Thu followed behind me, peering here and there, its eyes filled with curiosity. At that moment, the sound of footsteps suddenly echoed from nearby. I turned toward the noise to see 2 villagers, tasked with guarding the spirit fields, approaching with hoes in hand. Upon seeing humans present, a fierce blood-red light flickered in Nathu's eyes. Detestable. How dare other living creatures exist on my territory? As it spoke, a dark green demonic aura surged from its body, but I pinned it down before it could act. Unable to contain its rage, Nathu hissed, "Who do you think you are to touch me? Do you believe I cannot make your entire body erupt in boils, rotting away to the very bone?" Upon hearing this, the 2 villagers turned pale with terror and retreated repeatedly. The other villagers working nearby, alerted by the Does this mouse truly possess the ability to speak? Has it achieved sentience? It is no wonder this spirit field was bestowed by the divine. Even a mouse that steals grain can cultivate into a sentient being. With the villagers chattering back and forth, Nathu grew increasingly incensed. You lowly vermin, you are infuriating this old master to death. Just as it prepared to unleash further threats, it noticed Hong Ling swiftly pushing through the crowd. Her gaze swept over, immediately catching sight of the faint, ethereal white silhouette standing behind Nathu. She instantly knelt down. I pay my respects to the divine. Although the villagers could not see me, they knew Hong Lin possessed the ability to behold the divine visage. Thus the crowd hastily knelt in reverence as well. I raised a hand to signal for Hong Ling to rise. This mouse is named Ning Thu. It is my attendant. There is no need for fear. From this day forth, to see it is to see me. Hong Lin loudly acknowledged the command, then proceeded to convey my decree to the villagers. It is an emissary of the divine and a harbinger of good fortune. From now on, to encounter it is to encounter the divine. Upon hearing this, the crowd bowed in unison toward Nathu, calling out greetings, honorable mouse master with every word. Nathu wore a bizarre expression, a harbinger of good fortune. Is that what I am? In all the years I have lived, this is the first time someone has called a mouse an omen of good fortune. At this moment, Nathu's bristled fur began to smooth, its tail curled upward, and it gradually lost itself in the rhythmic chants of honorable mouse master. Being addressed in such a manner, Nathu became quite pleased with itself, and its gaze toward Hong Ling became significantly more favorable. Observing the smug posture of Nathu, I was somewhat taken aback. I had initially braced myself for a protracted struggle, never expecting that a single remark from Hong Ling would secure the favor of Nathu. Could it really be this easy to win it over? As expected, this young girl is truly reliable. I sighed inwardly before issuing a command to Hong Lin. I have discovered that Hukuang Hill is the hiding place for the remnants of the snake demons. You must swiftly gather your equipment, accompany Thak Dao to Hukuang Hill, and eradicate every last one of the snake demon remnants. As I spoke, a surge of fluorescent energy, wrapped in an aura of death, descended before Hong Lin. There were 8 blood addict pills and grade 2 flesh and blood pills in total, along with 2 sets of grade 2 ancient armor and ancient blades. Take these to strengthen yourselves before you depart. Hong Lin accepted the elixirs and bowed deeply before me. Hong Lin shall certainly eradicate the snake demons and will not fail the divine's mandate. Beside her, Thak Dao reached out to receive his portion of the elixirs as well. Upon absorbing the medicinal efficacy, their energy surged rapidly, exceeding 100 points of flesh and blood essence, reaching the 2nd rank. With these matters settled, I nudged the leg of He Thu, who had been sitting idly by, watching the spectacle. Thu glared at me in a rage. You dare to be so presumptuous with this old master? Isn't your junior about to embark on a long journey? Are you not going to follow? Do not even think about deceiving me. I will not work for free for you. Hearing this, I did not change my expression, my tone carrying a deliberate trace of regret. You are an auspicious omen, after all. My junior is venturing into danger at Huguang Ridge. It would look unsightly for a senior to hide in the shadows. As soon as those words were uttered, Thu's claws froze. Fine, I will go, but let it be known that I am only responsible for protecting that girl. If that brat ends up dead, do not dare to cast the blame upon me. After the great mouse master finished speaking, he let out a long, heavy sigh and flopped onto the ground, his tail twitching in a display of utter resignation. Poor little mouse, I am reduced to working for that black-hearted Toei. I smiled and nodded. Nithu saw me agree so easily and felt that something was amiss. Tatue, you say that little mouse is also an omen of prosperity. You are not truly lying to me, are you? When have I ever lied to you? Nithu fell into deep contemplation. In that case, wait until I return, and you must tell me the details. Truth be told, I do not care much for the specifics. I only wish to discern whether your words are reality or falsehood. I paid no mind to how much time passed. Honglong and Thak Dao quickly finished their preparations, bowed to me, and set off on their journey. Nathu lay lazily on Honglang's shoulder, his tiny claws clutching a piece of grilled meat given to them by the villagers. The trio departed from the forest of the dead. Following my instructions, Honglong decided to head for the port of Bayou City first, intending to travel by water toward Huguang Ridge. No sooner had they arrived at the gates of Bayou City than the scene before them caused Thak Dao to halt in his tracks. Before them, the open field outside the city gates was packed with refugees in tattered rags. The majority of them were nothing but skin and bone. Their feet were wrapped in footwear that was barely held together. Watching this scene, Thak Dao's eyes grew hot. He knew that in these turbulent times, human life was as cheap as grass, a sight all too common. Instinctively, Thak Dao reached for the bag of rations at his waist, wanting to share his food with the starving children. Hong Lang gripped his arm tightly. Do not go. If you hand out rations to them now, it will only incite a riot among the others. And when chaos ensues, not only will you fail to save anyone, but you will also jeopardize the Great Master's mission. Thak Dao was stunned. But they are on the brink of starvation. How can we stand by and watch them die without offering aid? Hong Ling shook her head slightly. It is not that we refuse to save those facing death, but that we lack the capability. You possess only one bag of rations. It might feed these children for a moment, but can it truly keep them alive amidst this swarm of refugees? Hearing this, Shitou tightened his grip on the bag of rations, a sense of unspeakable bitterness rising within his heart. He understood this logic, yet it remained profoundly difficult to remain indifferent. At that moment, the beast on Hong Ling's shoulder shifted into a more comfortable position. You humans are truly troublesome creatures. Hong Ling heard this and tilted her head slightly. Does Master Mouse have some profound wisdom to share? If a matter is not yours to manage, then do not meddle. No. What this noble mouse means is that your gods have already made their own arrangements. The two looked at each other, finding themselves in complete agreement with this sentiment. Master Mouse speaks truly. In protecting the common people, there must be a balance of priorities. The gods instructed us to travel to Huguang Ridge to slay the snake demons, specifically to prevent more villages from being slaughtered and to stop more people from becoming refugees. Having said this, Hongling and Shitou walked past the gathering of refugees and entered Baiyu City. Afterward, the two immediately hurried toward the docks, seeking a path to Huguang Ridge. Meanwhile, at the heart of the lake in Huguang Ridge, Annihilating was residing on the island in the middle of the lake, his crimson eyes staring fixedly at the snake demons below. Hurry up! Why are you dawdling? Enter the formation at once. The snake matriarch stood by, helping to organize their offspring. Husbands, is such haste truly necessary? The formation still has several flaws. There is no harm in taking our time. Annihilating cast a sidelong glance at her. What would you know? You are well aware that the day is fast approaching. A few days ago when I traveled to Sudao County, I discovered that the evil wisdom had already begun to awaken. Although I devoured every soul in Shitou village who knew of the matter, that old ghost of Baiyu surely perceived something. That old man is cunning. We of Huguang Ridge must prepare early, for we cannot simply sit and wait for death. The snake matriarch sighed, forced to increase the pace, and urged the snake demons into the formation at the bottom of the lake. Just then a small snake demon scurried in from the shore, panicked. Great king, it is dire. No sooner had the words been spoken than a razor-sharp blade of sword energy erupted from the lakeside. In the blink of an eye, it cleaved a serpent demon clean in two before it could even evade the strike. Immediately following, a torrent of flames surged into the air, engulfing another serpent demon and swiftly reducing it to a heap of ashes. Then a voice, sounding somewhat youthful, rang out. Shitou has been ordered to slay these demons and eliminate this scourge. Prepare to meet your end, foul creatures. Accompanied by the resounding whistle of sword energy, several more serpent demons perished beneath Shitou's ancient blade. Annihilating stared fixedly at the two figures on the shore. The serpent mother instantly shed her gentle facade, baring her savage fangs as she lunged toward the bank alongside Annihilating. Shitou brandished his blade to meet the assault, his ancient sword carrying second-grade sword energy as he struck at Annihilating's head, yet he left nothing more than a shallow scratch upon its scales. Before he could follow up with another strike, the serpent mother launched a surprise attack from the flank, her tail lashing out like a whip against his waist. Shitou's body was instantly sent flying, colliding violently with a riverside boulder, and a mouthful of fresh blood sprayed forth, staining the front of his robes red. Seeing this, Hongling raised her hand to conjure a wall of flames for protection, then hurled a fire talisman toward Annihilating. Annihilating let out a cold, mocking laugh. Little girl, you dare to brandish flames before me? His serpent tail struck the surface of the lake with immense force, sending dozens of water blades flying toward Hongling. Several of these water blades grazed Hongling's arm, leaving wounds deep enough to expose the bone. Witnessing their desperate plight, Annihilating's laughter grew even more arrogant. Ha ha, with such meager skills you dare to come to my Guangling Lake to cause trouble? Truly laughable. Since you have delivered your corpses to my doorstep, I shall dismember you. The flesh and blood of cultivators are a potent tonic indeed. At that very moment, a faint sigh echoed through the air. The blood-patterned wooden plaque inside Shitou's robes soared into the sky. A burst of silver light erupted, and pitch-black death energy instantly flooded the area. A white skeleton slowly stepped forth from the radiance. Annihilating and the serpent mother came to an abrupt halt, their eyes filled with overwhelming terror. A remnant spirit, it is a true remnant spirit. At that moment, my ghost domain expanded instantly, shrouding the entire surface of the lake as the world fell into sudden darkness. I cast a glance at the wounded Shitou and Hongling, then walked over to the side where Nietyu was watching the spectacle and hoisted it up. Still lying there watching the show? Working so sluggishly, is this how you protect your juniors? Nietyu shrieked in protest, its short limbs flailing wildly. You are quite bold. Release this great Master Mouse. This girl is only slightly injured, is she not? She hasn't died yet. If she were truly at death's door, would I, the great Master Mouse, not have intervened? Upon seeing the mouse-like creature suspended in mid-air, Annihilating felt his courage shatter, for he had never even detected the presence of a mouse hiding nearby. What terrified him even more was that he could not perceive the rank or the aura of this creature at all. This meant that the beast's strength far exceeded his own, reaching at least the peak of the third rank. A vicious resolve took hold of Annihilating. Damnable creature, he thought, it seems I have no choice but to initiate my plan early. If I can only achieve a breakthrough to the third rank, I may yet have a chance to escape. He cast a glance at the snake mother beside him, cursing her silently as a piece of trash. Suddenly, Annihilating opened his blood-stained maw and bit the snake mother in half with a single strike. The remaining half of her body fell to the ground, writhing in agony. At that moment, the once calm surface of the lake began to ripple, gradually churning into a frenzy. A surge of blood essence rose from the depths of the lake, pouring relentlessly into Annihilating's body. Amidst the roiling blood energy, the power within Annihilating's body began to erupt continuously. In the blink of an eye, he transcended the threshold of 10,000 units of flesh and blood energy, reaching the third rank. Staring intently at the skeleton and art, a manic smile curled the corners of Annihilating's mouth. So what if you possess demonic wisdom? Today, every one of you mongrels will die by my hand. Hearing this, I frowned. You are far too noisy. I grabbed Art by the scruff of its neck and hurled it directly toward Annihilating. Go Pikachu. The moment art was thrown, it let out an piercing, unbelievable shriek, yet it showed no signs of panic. It quickly adjusted its trajectory in mid-air, transforming into a dark green streak of light as it dove straight for Annihilating. Just as Annihilating remained immersed in the ecstasy of his breakthrough to the third rank, he felt a bone-piercing pain strike between his brows. A blood hole 2 fingers wide had punctured the giant snake's head as fresh blood and brains gushed out violently. How is this possible? Before the words could leave his lips, Annihilating's massive body crashed to the ground, completely devoid of life. After landing, Art squatted to the side, frantically grooming the fur stained with blood while spitting out chunks of gore from its mouth. Damn you, this is disgustingly foul. I remained where I stood and commanded the skeleton to step forward, its hands lifting the heavily injured Shitou and Hongling to their feet. I retrieved 2 medicinal pills and fed one to the unconscious Shitou. As the elixir reached his stomach, color gradually returned to his pale complexion. Hongling, still possessing a sliver of consciousness, took the pill. A sudden, bitter ache rose in her heart and her eyes instantly welled up with tears. I reached out to gently pat Hongling's head, my voice carrying a note of reassurance. Do not worry, everything is fine. The sensation of a palm resting upon her head caused Hongling to instantly regain her composure. She looked up at me, the bitterness in her heart slowly dissipating. Now that Annihilating was dead, the few remaining snake demons dared not move and were easily harvested by the skeleton. At this moment, I sensed a faint trace of blood energy lingering at the bottom of the lake. I raised an eyebrow slightly, while Nathwit, standing beside me, curled its lip. The blood sacrifice of the 9 clans, sacrificing the bloodlines of one's own kin to drain their energy. Such a dilapidated and ancient formation is considered a treasure only by an idiot like Annihilating. Let this emperor dismantle it for you. Hearing this, Nathwit immediately bristled. I tried to order the great rat about, but it ignored me until I added a single condition. If we go home, I will treat you to garlic braised snake, steamed snake meat with hibiscus and salt and pepper snake ribs. It became elated at once. Then you must not deceive this master rat. Before the words had even faded, Nathwet transformed into a gray blur and dove into the lake. A moment later, the lake waters surged violently. Hundreds of snake demon corpses floated up from the depths, among them a mutated white serpent with eyes glowing a faint crimson. As soon as it broke free, it spun once upon the surface, transforming into a young woman with white hair and pink eyes, before kneeling upon the water. Young demon Ni Chaoji pays respects to the immortal master and offers gratitude for saving my life. I watched her, a hint of surprise in my eyes. This white serpent could not only manifest a human form but was also devoid of any bloodthirsty aura or malevolent intent. On the contrary, she radiated the distinct spiritual aura characteristic of a human cultivator. At this moment, Ngathwet scurried closer, staring at the white serpent with glowing eyes. This is a spirit beast. It does not rely on consuming blood and flesh, but cultivates through spiritual energy alone. A rank 2 spirit beast is capable of shifting its form, and its meat is incredibly nourishing. Upon hearing this, the white serpent's frame trembled violently. I pondered for a moment, silently calculating in my heart, if I subdue this creature, I can test whether it is capable of performing tasks. If it performs well, I shall keep it. If not, butchering it for food will be no loss. Thinking of this, my gaze swept over Ni Chaoji. Annihilating committed many evils, slaughtered villages, and sacrificed his ancestors. His crimes are unforgivable. I am the Whitebone God Monarch, and I have come specifically to slay demons for the protection of humanity. Given that you have not yet been tainted by evil deeds and your spiritual intellect has only just awakened, I shall grant you the chance to redeem your sins. Follow me. Hearing this, Ni Zhaoxi did not dare to delay even for an instant, and she kowtowed deeply. Zhaoxi swears allegiance to you, my lord. I shall never harbor a disloyal thought in this lifetime. I await your commands. As she spoke, the few small black snakes remaining nearby twisted their bodies, watching Ni Zhaoxi's submission with admiration, before looking toward me with eager anticipation. Great God, we small ones have not yet been corrupted by evil. Though we were born in Huoguang Ridge, our hearts have always yearned for the human race. I glanced at them. Since they were willing to submit, they might as well follow. Upon hearing this, the little black snakes nodded their heads and wagged their tails in haste. Then I turned my gaze toward Ni Zhaoxi. Since that is the case, Ni Zhaoxi, you shall wait here for Hongling and Shitou. As for you lot, I said, looking at the black snakes, clean up the battlefield and transport these corpses back to the forest of the dead. The order was given, and Ni Zhaoxi reverted to her original white snake form, carefully lifting Shitou and Hongling. The other black snakes began dragging the carcasses of their kin. 2 of them even fought over who would have the honor of transporting the remains of Annihilating. The scene was, for a moment, rather bizarre. Seeing this, Shu let out a scoff, truly cowardly. Why has your heart become so soft of late? Protecting the human race is one thing, but what use is there in keeping these low-level demons? I cast a sidelong glance at it. Do you not know how to make use of waste? Bringing them back to mine for ores and fell trees is quite useful, is it not? Yishu's small eyes brightened, and it nodded with a knowing look. That makes sense. Truly, you practitioners of dark arts are as black-hearted as they come. I smiled and looked once more toward the small, glistening white jade island in the middle of the lake. The island stood out against the water, shrouded in pure spiritual energy. I grabbed Yishu by the scruff of its neck once again. As Yishu was licking its claws, its instincts warned it that something ominous was afoot. Immediately after, it heard my voice, cold as a demon's. Yishu, go and bring that white jade island back here. Are you really treating this great mouse deity like a pack mule? We just finished fighting, and now you ask this great mouse deity to gnaw on stones? Yishu's fur stood on end, but it dared not shirk its duty. It could only roll its eyes and reluctantly trudge toward the shore of the lake. Despicable, a dark, heartless cultivator who only knows how to exploit this poor mouse. A mouse's life is a life too. I watched as Yishu opened its small mouth and inhaled sharply toward the white jade island, pulling the entire structure, roots and all, from the bed of the lake. At that moment, the system notification chimed. The blood jade is a tier 4 celestial treasure. Wearing it long-term provides great benefits to one's cultivation. It is also a superior material for artifact refining. The blood jade marrow, a tier 6 celestial treasure, is born within the blood jade. Consuming it directly can cause one's blood essence and energy to surge dramatically. After inspecting these items, I used my ghost domain to envelop the shrunken island and placed it upon Nijoshi. At this moment, the fur of art was so exhausted it had turned a dull gray. It lay sprawled on the ground, panting heavily, its eyes flicking toward me with resentment. However, seeing that I was ruthless to everyone equally, it felt slightly more at ease. As night fell, Nijiaoshi's band of demons was on their journey home. My brows furrowed suddenly as I caught the faint scent of death. Could it be that evil intelligence? How interesting. I extended my divine sense to investigate and discovered a shadowy figure hiding within a cargo ship at the Fengdao County Pier. Seeing this, the corners of my mouth curled upward, and I immediately instructed Shitou and Hongling to head down and slay the demon. Thus, after Ni Jiaoxi brought Hongling and Shitou to the pier, she bade them farewell and ferried the goods toward the dead man's forest. I did not depart but silently followed the pair, with Art lying quietly on my shoulder. By now, Hongling and Shitou had made contact with the ship's owner, Wang Er. Unexpectedly, he had known about this matter for a long time. Wang Er immediately seized the opportunity, asking Hongling and her companion to employ their magical arts to subdue the demon. Deep in the night, the once calm river suddenly became covered in a thin layer of frost, and faint scraping sounds echoed across the deck. Hongling circulated her cultivation technique, and a stream of flames condensed in her hand, manifesting as a firefox. She pushed the cabin door open gently and stepped out. She saw a paper effigy standing at the bow of the ship. Its facial features were drawn with crude brushstrokes. The corners of its mouth were fixed in an eerie, unnatural curve. A fire talisman was already clutched between Hongling's fingertips, ready to strike whatever was causing this disturbance. The paper effigy did not respond, but its head suddenly rotated 180 degrees, staring at her with that same malevolent smile. Hongling did not hesitate, and she fired the talisman from her hand. However, the paper effigy neither dodged nor retreated. Its arms, set ablaze by the flames, were quickly extinguished by the encroaching aura of death. Hearing the commotion, Shitou immediately charged out of the cabin, swinging his ancient sword as he struck. Hongling seized the opportunity to toss out more fire talismans, each one wrapping around the paper effigy's body and erupting into a roaring blaze. Yet the paper effigy stood perfectly still, like a target waiting for its own destruction. Wang Er, hidden within the cabin, gathered his courage to peek through the door Shitou had pushed open. As the firelight illuminated the face of the paper effigy, he let out a wretched scream. It was the face of his younger brother, Wang San. Hearing this, Hongling's heart sank, and the paper effigy, hearing the sound, turned its head back toward them. Seeing this, Wang Er's legs gave way, and he collapsed to the ground. In the next instant, two streams of death aura surged from the paper effigy. One coiled around Wang Er, while the other darted toward Hongling. Wang Er was only grazed by it, yet his limbs began to move beyond his control, turning the pallid, ghastly white of parchment. As Wang Er struggled and cried for help, Hongling's expression shifted, and she cast a fire talisman in a desperate attempt to intercept it. Just as the fire talisman clashed with the death aura, I stood atop the cabin roof and snatched at the empty air. The two streams of death aura were crushed by an invisible hand and vanished instantly. At the same moment, the paper effigy crumbled into ash. However, my gaze did not linger on the charred remains, but shifted toward the river surface. Because the moment I intervened, the death aura had swiftly escaped, diving deep into the riverbed. My consciousness stirred, and I expanded my ghost domain across the water, plunging straight into the depths. I followed the final trajectory of the death aura, descending to the river floor. There, embedded in the thick silt of the riverbed, I beheld countless paper effigies standing in silence. At that very moment, the heads of the paper figures rotated in unison, their eerie smiles fixed upon me. Seeing this, I waved my hand, and the effigies were instantly twisted and shattered, disintegrating into scraps of paper mixed with the mud. After clearing them away, I withdrew my ghost domain and turned my gaze toward the ancient ancestral hall in the distance. At this moment, Nishu was still lazily lounging on my shoulder. What was down there worth diving for in the middle of the night? I shook my head, uncertain. It was filled with paper effigies, and there is an ancestral hall submerged beneath the water. The death aura is dense, yet it feels rather peculiar. Have you ever seen ghost energy capable of merging with death aura? Nishu looked at me with disdain. You ask me, are you the evil cultivator or am I? I slapped my forehead. Fine, let us return first. Until we clarify exactly what kind of entity this is, it is best not to stir it further. At the same time, at the Bayou City Lord's mansion, Sujuan gripped his transmission jade slip tightly, cold sweat beating on his forehead. From the other end of the jade slip, the sect master of Bayou's sect, Guo Shiren, was bellowing in rage. You useless trash, the High Immortals' affairs are fast approaching. I explicitly ordered the wedding paper to be prepared, yet you allowed it all to burn to ashes. Su Jian, are you tired of living? Su Jiyuan groaned in distress. Sect Master, please calm your anger. This subordinate does not know how the wedding paper enshrined in the secret chamber turned to ash in the blink of an eye. However, Guo Shorin had no interest in explanations. He demanded a solution. A thought occurred to Su Jiwan. There are still refugees outside Baiyu City. I wonder if they could be used as sacrificial mediums? Zhenjiang, Great General. How much flesh and blood can one possibly extract from these refugees? You must find a way yourself. I grant you 3 days. I expect to see the new offerings, lest you interfere with the superior immortal's grand design. Suhan replied in a hurried tone. You are well aware of the consequences. Understood, my lord. I shall attend to it immediately. Half a day later, the voice of the custodian Guo resonated once more. How fares Jianxin? Su Jiwan beat his chest, assuring him that everything remained under control. My lord, I have proceeded according to the plan. The fate of Jianxin has begun to fluctuate violently. Her vitality is overflowing. She'll be a perfect vessel at any moment. Su Jian hastened to report. Very well. Guard her closely and ensure there are no mishaps. Once this is complete, the superior immortal shall bestow a great reward upon you. A hint of satisfaction could be heard in the custodian's voice before the transmission was severed. Su Jiwan immediately summoned his confidants. Where is Jian Huai Chong? Where is he hiding? The subordinates exchanged uneasy glances. My lord, no one has seen the sword immortal since that day at the city gates. We assumed you had made other arrangements. Upon hearing this, Su Jiwan was so infuriated that the veins on his forehead began to bulge. A pack of useless trash. Find him at once. But remember to act in secret. Do not alert the enemy. Meanwhile, in the forest of the dead, I returned to my territory with anticipation. Ni Zhaoxi and a few small black serpents had already arrived, lying obediently at the perimeter of the domain. Without further thought, I commanded the ghost fire to emerge, directing the massive haul of materials brought back by the snake demons into the ghost realm to be dismantled. I went straight to the altar of white bones. As I surveyed the mountain of materials piled before me, a flicker of excitement ignited in my eyes. After long periods of accumulation, combined with this bountiful harvest, the materials required for the final sacrifice were at last sufficient. I must grow stronger. Without hesitation, I initiated the sacrifice, and a vast silvery energy instantly enveloped the altar of white bones. The light shone brilliantly. The very material of the altar seemed to solidify, and the aura it emitted grew increasingly profound. My personal status panel updated accordingly. Current rank, Ghost Domain level. The influence of the Ghost Realm expanded to encompass 1,000 meters. The population of Ghost Thralls increased to 100, and the Ghost Market population rose to 10. The bones materials available for summoning white bone entities have reached the 2nd rank. Gazing at the interface before me, I fell into deep contemplation. This meant the next upgrade would require the sacrifice of 1 million units of common materials. This figure is nearly equivalent to the entire population of a small city. I clicked my tongue in thought. 2nd-tier materials are not easily obtained. Only cultivators or demonic beasts that have reached the 2nd rank can produce them consistently. However, I remained unconcerned, for in the architectural blueprints, I discovered the flesh furnace and the soul-smelting forge. These processing structures can compress and refine vast quantities of low-tier materials into those of higher grade. Thus, the pressing issue now is manpower. Constructing and operating these facilities will require a significant amount of labor. With this in mind, I looked toward the horizon. If the great evil god wishes to save the human race, then let it begin here at White Jade City. At this moment, the system issued a reward. The evil god's physical form was strengthened, and the sacrificial function was enhanced. Beneath the sacrificial board, a supplemental offering panel appeared. Its function allows for the sacrifice of complete high-grade materials, which are automatically converted into the corresponding sacrificial progress, granting additional rewards based on the quality of the high-grade materials provided. Seeing this, I cast the entire corpse of Ni Heilong onto the altar, sacrificing a standard 100-year-old black serpent demon, unlocking the special structure, the blood orb basin, and the special skill, demonic blood surge, which draws blood essence from the void, automatically generating 1 unit of 3rd or 4th tier blood of random quality each day. My eyes lit up. This was not bad at all. The blood orb basin is effectively a stable high-tier blood production facility. If it can produce 4th-tier blood, the profit is immense. Following this, I deployed the blood orb basin from the Ghost Realm, placing it at the center of my territory, and casually tossed the massive block of blood jade I had seized from Huangguang Ridge into it, intending to use the blood essence surging within the basin to nurture the jade marrow. The blood jade within the basin transformed into a miniature island of white jade, after which the blood in the basin rapidly gathered to one side, while the other side gushed forth a stream of spring water brimming with spiritual energy. The blood and the spring water remained clearly distinct within the basin, forming a vision as harmonious yet eerie as a yin-yang taiji symbol. After confirming there were no anomalies, I casually erected a trial stone beside it. Just then, Hongling and Shitou returned successfully, making the already bustling territory even more crowded. The villagers witnessed the sudden appearance of the blood basin and the giant stone, regarding them as a divine miracle, and knelt in unison before the altar, praising the magnificent power of the deity. Next, I instructed Hongling to organize the villagers so they could take turns testing their spirit roots. I stood to the side, observing the information returned by the immortal testing stone on my personal interface. Most of the villagers possessed impure spirit roots, making cultivation an arduous path, yet they remained suited for a variety of tasks. However, to my surprise, a small portion of the villagers had already achieved a breakthrough to the first intent realm, becoming true cultivators. It seemed the aura of the general evaluation platform was already taking effect. When it was Lidaju's turn, he rubbed his rough, calloused hands together, pressing them against the immortal testing stone with a hint of nervousness. The stone surface emitted a faint glow, and several twisted, irregular lines began to appear. My information panel displayed Lidaju's details. Mortal grade wood spirit root, special constitution, woodcutter, wood chopping efficiency increased by 20%. Innate inheritance, Wugang reincarnated. There is a 0.1% chance to obtain random items when performing the task of chopping wood. Truly a cheat, although the probability is low, it has already brought me 2 pleasant surprises. Afterward, I bestowed several medicinal pills upon Lidaju. Upon receiving the reward, he ran excitedly toward Jian Huai Chong, an outsider he had met only today. Brother, look, this is the divine being I told you about. Jian Huai Chong nodded, though he retreated a step further backward. On the other side, Shitou placed his hands upon the immortal testing stone. Earth-grade metal spirit root, special constitution, 100 refined body, increases comprehension of arts and martial techniques as well as cultivation speed by 50%. Innate inheritance, heavenly steel blade technique, provides immense reinforcement to his physical foundation. His physique far exceeds those of the same rank, and he can convert his entire blood essence into blade energy, increasing martial technique damage by 300%. Finally, there was Hong Ling, Earth-grade fire spirit root, exquisite heart and orifices, increases sensory perception by 200% and spell damage by 100%. Innate inheritance, Phoenix Fire Talisman, increases charm and enlightenment by 100%. Once these matters were concluded, I summoned Ni Jiaoxi to my side. Earth-grade water spirit root, special constitution, pure water body, capable of purifying surrounding water sources, infusing them with thin traces of spiritual energy. Long-term consumption has the effect of strengthening the body and improving one's health. It can silently bestow peace and prosperity upon its dwelling place. Spirit beasts rely on the absorption of heaven and earth's spiritual energy to cultivate. Upon reading the final line of information, my eyes lit up. I never expected Ni Jiaoxi to possess an innate water affinity. Immediately after, I looked at the white snake swimming silently by my side. From this day forward, you shall be the dragon king of this well, guarding the water source and nurturing this land. Ni Jiaoxi looked up with her pale pink eyes. Jiaoxi acknowledged, and with that she swam her slender, graceful serpentine body to the side of the well. She carefully coiled around the well's edge, pressing her body against the cool stone. I watched the white snake diligently guarding an ordinary well and smiled. She was truly obedient. At the same time, within the Bayou City Lord's estate, Su Jiwan listened to his subordinate's report with a grave expression. My lord, we have tracked the final movements of Jian Huai Chong toward the Forest of the Dead. In recent days, there have indeed been rumors of 2 cultivators of unknown origin appearing, traveling to Huaguang Ridge to slay the snake demon and subdue the remnant spirits. According to the accounts of Wang and the others, those 2 cultivators originated from the Forest of the Dead. Upon hearing this, Su Zhuan slammed his hand onto the table, immediately dispatching more capable subordinates to infiltrate the Forest of the Dead. Your primary mission is to locate Jian Huaichong. You must bring him back to me at any cost. Should stand in your way, show no mercy. Simultaneously, Su Zhuan's trusted confidant Wang Wei personally accepted these orders. He selected over a dozen elite warriors from the Shadow Breath stage, and the group marched toward the Forest of the Dead, radiating a murderous aura. As soon as they stepped into the territory of the Forest of the Dead, a wave of gloomy, sinister energy washed over them. Wang Wei shuddered. His right hand immediately rested upon the hilt of his blade, for he knew that a formidable evil spirit surely lurked in this place. As he led his team deeper into the woods, the sounds of villagers gathering and laughing echoed through the trees. A glint of disgust and vigilance flashed in Wang Wei's eyes. They had undoubtedly been bewitched by an evil spirit and transformed into mindless puppets. At that moment, his gaze caught the figure of Jian Huai Chong in a secluded corner. Having found his target, Wang Wei felt a slight sense of relief. He signaled to his subordinate, Tang Dao. Tang Dao understood his intention and strode forward to stand before Jian Huai Chong. Brother Jian, the immortal celebration is approaching and the sect is busy. It would be best if you return to Bayou City with us. Jian Huai Chong, feeling that he had already caused too much trouble here, nodded silently. But just as he prepared to leave, Widow Liu stepped forward and grabbed his sleeve. Young man, your wounds have not yet healed and your complexion is still deathly pale. How can you possibly leave now? Rest for 2 more days, recover your strength, and then decide. She turned to look at Wang Wei and the others. Are you people blind? If you want to take him away, you must at least consider whether the wounds on his body have fully healed. Wang Wei stepped forward, his spiritual energy erupting and forcing the Li clan matriarch to stagger backward. Insolent, you fishermen have been bewitched by the evil spirit. Do you dare to obstruct this official's duty? Kneel before me. With a wave of his hand, he channeled his energy into a blade. A streak of condensed white sword chi pierced the air, striking toward the matriarch's knees with the speed of lightning. Jian Huiyang's pupils constricted. Acting on pure instinct, he swung his greatsword to shield the Li clan matriarch. The sword key slammed violently into the broad blade. Seeing him dare to intervene, Wang Wei roared in fury. Jian Huai Chong, you useless trash, you dare to raise a hand against me? You are truly possessed by demons. The foundation of the White Jade Sword Sect is to eradicate demons and uphold the righteous path. As a disciple of the Sword Sect, instead of slaying demons, you choose to protect these pawns of the evil spirit. Betraying your own principles, you are a disgrace to the Sword Sect. Jian Huai Chong gritted his teeth, channeling every remaining ounce of spiritual energy into his greatsword. The blade glowed with a brilliant light as he held it horizontally, shielding the matriarch. Another deafening explosion rang out. The greatsword was knocked aside. The razor-sharp sword chi surged forward, slamming directly into Jian Huai Chong's chest. His body collapsed to the ground, and the Li clan matriarch, caught in the residual blast of the sword chi, also sustained minor injuries. In this moment of impending doom, a furious shout erupted like a clap of thunder. Stop! A figure instantly lunged into the center of the battlefield. Wang Wei could not even track the newcomer's movements. He felt an irresistible force slam into his chest. The next second, he vomited a mouthful of fresh blood and was sent flying backward, only coming to a halt after smashing through a grotesque tree as thick as a man's embrace. Wang Wei lifted his head with great difficulty, only to see a youth clad in bone-white armor slowly retracting his fist. Wang Wei's expression turned deathly pale. A third-stage Hard-Eye Realm cultivator? How could such a young expert exist within this lair of the evil spirit? Shidou's face remained cold and expressionless. Without a wasted word, he charged straight at the henchman. In the blink of an eye, a dozen elite guards were reduced to groaning heaps, having completely lost the ability to fight. Afterward, he grabbed the severely wounded, limp Wang Wei and tossed him onto the pile with the other guards whose limbs had been shattered. A middle-aged man holding a hoe stepped forward. Brother Shitou, how shall we dispose of these people? Just as Shadow was about to speak, my voice echoed directly into his mind. Kill them all. Do not leave a single one alive. Shitou gave a slight nod. He drew the ancient sword from his waist and walked step by step toward Wang Wei, who was cowering on the ground. Sensing true, murderous intent, Wang Wei screamed in terror, "You cannot kill me. I am a man of the White Jade City Lord's mansion." Before his words could fade, Wang Wei's head was severed from his neck. The remaining guards, lacking any power to resist, were swiftly executed. Suddenly, a violent fit of coughing erupted from nearby. Everyone turned toward the sound to find Jian Huai Chong lying upon the ground, his body trembling intensely, a deep blood-soaked hole visible in the center of his forehead. This horrific scene struck everyone present, yet Jian Huai Chong himself seemed entirely unaware. He struggled to push himself up, offered a respectful bow to the anxious villagers, and limped his way toward the outskirts of the Forest of the Dead. The widow Li watched with a heavy heart, wanting to call out and stop him, but Hong Ling gently pulled her back. "Let him go, Auntie Li. This is the will of the divine, for he has a mission that must be fulfilled." The widow Li let out a long weary sigh, then turned to quickly bundle together some dried meat and medicinal herbs, rushing to chase after him. Without saying a word, she shoved the parcel into Jian Huai Chong's hands. "Take this to eat on your journey and look after yourself." Having said that, she turned her head away, unable to bear watching him any longer. Jian Huai Chong gripped the still warm cloth bundle, his frame trembling slightly. "My deepest thanks." At that same moment, I turned to Yishu and took hold of the blood-patterned wood plaque belonging to Shitou. "We are following him." Yishu tilted its head. "What is so interesting about this pathetic wretch?" I glanced at the corpses of Wang Wei and his men, the corner of my mouth curling into a faint smile. "White Jade City has sent such a significant gift to our Forest of the Dead. If we do not go to return the favor, it would be quite impolite. Besides, I wish to see exactly what kind of scheme White Jade City and this sword sect are plotting." Upon hearing this, Yishu's eyes gleamed. "To stir up trouble? Good, good. This great one loves nothing more than causing chaos." Yishu's form flickered, and amidst the flow of black light, it transformed into a figure clad in tight-fitting dark night attire, with a strange half-mask covering its face. We then quietly trailed behind Jian Huai Chong from a distance. Jian Huai Chong walked very slowly, remaining oblivious to those tailing him. By the time we approached the vicinity of White Jade City, I keenly noticed that the number of refugees gathered outside the city walls had significantly decreased since Shitou and Hong Ling's last visit. Right at the city gate, Jian Huai Chong was suddenly intercepted by 3 sword sect disciples. One of them stepped forward and shoved Jian Huai Chong roughly. Caught off guard, seeing how frail he appeared, the disciple's arrogance surged. His spittle nearly hit Jian Huai Chong's face as he spat, "You useless trash." With the immortal celebration ceremony fast approaching, the entire sect was in a state of chaos. Yet you chose this moment to vanish for 3 full days. Because of your incompetence, our brothers were severely punished by the master, forced to kneel in the ancestral hall for the entire night. Growing more incensed with every word, he raised his foot and kicked Jian Huai Chong in the shin. Jian Huai Chong let out a faint grunt, his body trembling violently and cold sweat beating on his forehead, yet he remained tight-lipped and silent. The lead disciple sneered. "What is the point of clinging to this broken sword and pretending to be someone? Are you even worthy of wielding a blade now?" With that, he reached out, intent on snatching the great sword from Jian Huai Chong's embrace. "You unleashed that forbidden technique for the sake of mere mortal ants. And for what? Your cultivation is entirely drained, leaving you in this wretched state. Tell me, have you not become the greatest laughingstock since the founding of our sword sect?" At that moment, hidden in the shadows, I nudged Nathuat, signaling for him to intervene. Nathuat pointed to himself, whispering, "What benefit is there for you in helping him?" In this great wilderness world, strength is supreme. He squandered his own power, a fool's errand. What is there to sympathize with? I smiled. There is no benefit. Then why ask this lord to take action? I watched the silent, enduring figure and sighed. I acknowledge that I could never do what he has done, but I hold respect for those who walk the true path of cultivation. Kindness demands a price, and this was his choice to make, so he must naturally bear the consequences himself. I paused for a moment and retrieved a small vial. Go on, and take these 2 medicinal pills to him while you are at it. And remember to tell him that, regardless of the circumstances, a practitioner must never regret the choices they have made. Aethuet stared at me for a long time before finally muttering, "How strange. You, a demonic cultivator, are truly an enigma." Having said that, Naethuet's figure flickered like a ghost, appearing at the city gate. What is all this clamor? A pack of mongrels disturbing this lord's tranquility. The 3 sword sect disciples could not even follow his movements. They felt an irresistible force descend upon them, their faces stinging from a flurry of slaps, as they collapsed to the ground in a daze. The 3 of them were both shocked and terrified, yet they found themselves entirely unable to discern the true identity of the man in black. They could only perceive that his aura was unfathomably deep, far surpassing that of their own master. Petrified, their souls nearly leaving their bodies in fear, they hurriedly bowed respectfully, asking which venerable expert he was, and why he would interfere in the internal affairs of the sword sect. Yushu folded his arms across his chest, adopting an arrogant stance. I merely came to attend your wretched immortal celebration ceremony, and I happen to find you all eyesores. Is that not reason enough? Be gone at once, you eyesores. As if granted a reprieve from death, the 3 dared not utter another word, hurriedly helping Jian Huai Chong into the city. At this moment, Yushu called them back, carelessly tossing a crude porcelain vial to Jian Huai Chong, his tone remaining as abrasive as ever. My master bestows this upon you. He said that since you chose this path yourself, do not live to regret it. With those words, his figure vanished instantly from the spot. At this moment, I was not focused on the city gate, but rather observing an area outside the city of Bayou. I saw a detachment of troops from the city lord's mansion, accompanied by several guards appearing amidst the refugees. A few people who had been gasping for breath on straw mats scrambled to their feet the moment they saw the men from the city lord's mansion, a flicker of hope igniting in their eyes. The surrounding refugees surged forward like a tide, surrounding them completely. The masters are here. Is it our turn today? The crowd whispered and gossiped, their words drifting into my ears. A tall, thin man tugged at the sleeve of his companion. I told you the city lord is a living bodhisattva. They began distributing porridge days ago, and now they are recruiting workers to expand the city. Once you get in, you become an official citizen. This is a heaven-sent opportunity. The man beside him was equally exhilarated. At this time, among the officials from the city lord's mansion, the middle-aged man leading the group barked orders at his subordinates. What are you standing there for? Maintain order. Do not take the weak or the ill. Select only the young and able-bodied. Hurry! The guards obeyed, roughly shoving the crowd aside, since over 100 young men who met the requirements were screened out. Their faces held expressions of bewilderment, yet beneath it lay the joy of a new life about to begin. The man cast a glance over them, appearing quite satisfied. He waved his hand, "Take them away." At that same moment, as I led Yueshu in hiding within the ghost realm, I suddenly recalled the report Hong Ling had given me earlier. My lord, a large number of refugees have gathered outside Bayou City, all of whom have had their homes destroyed by demons. Having fled here, they are destitute and starving, struggling to survive from one day to the next. If you require manpower, my lord, they would willingly offer their lives in exchange for a meager meal. I had originally intended to instruct Hong Ling and Shitou to handle this matter in the coming days, but I did not expect the Bayou City Lord's mansion to make their move first. With this in mind, I whispered to Yishu beside me, and we followed them. Shortly after, we arrived at a riverbank where a medium-sized cargo ship was anchored. The guards were impatiently urging the refugees forward. "Get on the boat! What are you dawdling for?" The refugees gazed at the vessel and the murky river water with trepidation. Some showed clear signs of anxiety, yet under the relentless shouting of the guards, they stepped onto the wooden planks one by one. At this moment, the middle-aged man produced a thick stack of white paper, demanding that everyone who boarded the ship provide a thumbprint. Yishu sniffed the air, then covered his nose in disgust. There was an aura of death, faint yet undeniably the breath of the evil spirits clinging to those sheets of paper. Hearing this, I nodded. I had not expected the evil spirits beneath the river to have the backing of Bayou City. I only wonder if this is merely the personal ambition of the city lord, or the hidden agenda of the sword sect behind them. I had previously held a favorable opinion of the Bayou sword sect, as they had protected the populace of the city, and had even produced a man as upright as Jian Huai Chong. By now, once the refugees had boarded, the cargo ship slowly departed from the pier, drifting into the middle of the river. Seeing this, I furrowed my brow. There is truly no shortage of schemes hidden within this affair. Sir, let us proceed to confront the evil spirit beneath the river and see what it truly is. Can you not resolve your own affairs with these evil spirits? Do not drag me into this. Rest assured, I have recently undergone a breakthrough. I am now terrifyingly powerful. That entity is no match for me. At that moment, the cargo ship drifted away from the shore, carried downstream by the murky, churning current. The middle-aged man and several of his key associates stood on the bank, whispering to one another about how they would celebrate once they returned. Yixiu, meanwhile, remained hidden in the shadows. With a flicker of his intent, a colorless and odorless miasma of plague seeped into the noses and mouths of those men. The middle-aged man suddenly felt an itch in his throat and could not help but cough. Immediately thereafter, he watched in terror as large, festering boils erupted across the back of his hands, his flesh rotting and blackening at a speed visible to the naked eye. Before he could even cry for help, he and the manager standing beside him collapsed to the ground simultaneously, drawing their final breaths. At this instant, the figure it clapped its hands, dismissing the rabble. They were not even worthy of forcing the master to warm up his muscles. I merely stared at the departing boat without turning my head, giving it a perfunctory thumbs up. Well done, little mouse. As the boat ventured deeper, the fog over the river grew increasingly dense. The air was permeated with a faint, putrid stench and a chill that struck unease into the hearts of all. Seeing this, I was certain that the ghost energy and death aura were indeed the same unknown, malevolent forces encountered previously. The refugees on the boat also sensed this eerie atmosphere, stirring in restless anxiety. What is happening? Why is the fog so thick? Something is not right. The guards were clearly becoming tense as well. What is all this noise? Silence, all of you. They roughly threw open the cabin doors, using their scabbards and whips to drive the refugees onto the deck. The refugees huddled together, shivering on the deck. Shortly after, the guards produced lengths of rope. They bound the captives one by one, while some screamed in terror. My lords, what is the meaning of this? Are we not being taken to the new city? The leader of the guards let out a cold laugh and kicked away the heavy cabin hatch, revealing piles of massive heavy stones stacked inside. The refugees were stunned as if struck by lightning, watching the guards haul out the stones and tie them firmly to the waists or ankles of each prisoner. That is correct. We are taking you to the new city to contribute your bodies as mortar for the walls. You may either jump into the river yourselves or be kicked in by me. At that moment, I instructed Nithuat from the riverbank to rescue them. Hearing this, Nithuat swiftly slipped toward the guard leader. Without a moment's hesitation, it snapped the man's neck. The remaining guards were struck with soul-shaking terror, crying out, "Who goes there? Has the great general of Zhenjiang manifested his spirit?" Nithuat, having no patience for words, released a surge of deep green miasma. In an instant, the remaining guards were withered and lifeless. The ropes binding the refugees snapped silently under the corrosive touch of Nithuat's demonic energy. Yet the refugees themselves remained completely unharmed. They stared at the guards who had vanished from the deck and the terrifying figure in black who had suddenly appeared. The relief of being saved, which had just risen in their hearts, was instantly replaced by a greater swell of fear and wailing. Nithuat let out a cold, impatient shout, "Enough of your howling." Instantly, every sound was extinguished. Nithuat nodded in satisfaction. "Listen closely and follow my instructions. Among you who knows how to navigate a ship?" Upon hearing this, a few men trembling with fear raised their hands. Thuat cast a fleeting glance at them before tossing a map towards them, marking the location of the Fengdao district pier. "Take the ship to this location. 2 children clad in bone armor and a white serpent will be there to receive you." The men stared at the wooden map, hesitating to speak, but were cut off. "Do not ask questions, simply obey." With those words, his figure flickered and vanished from the spot. On the other side, I plunged back into the riverbed, heading straight toward the ancestral hall submerged in the depths. As the distance closed, the architectural outlines gradually revealed themselves beneath the murky waters. It was a structure crafted with exquisite precision from various shades of colored paper. A plaque hung above the hall's entrance, upon which the words Zhenjiang Shrine were inscribed in thick, dark ink. I attempted to envelop this paper shrine within my ghost domain, only to discover that I could not absorb it from the outside. Consequently, I unleashed my divine sense to perceive the energy fluctuations emanating from the shrine. The ghostly shadows were incredibly oppressive, yet the aura possessed a strange quality. The nature of its power was remarkably heterogeneous. The malevolent mist pervading the river surface originated entirely from this very paper shrine. With this realization, I stepped directly through the wide-open paper door. Immediately, the environment shifted drastically. The icy river water and murky silt vanished without a trace. A sun appeared overhead, and the ground beneath my feet solidified into a path paved with sturdy blue stone. The surrounding structures transformed from illusory paper into authentic mausoleum architecture. The bustling crowd moving about created the vibrant scene of a temple thriving with incense and offerings. An old man dressed in rustic, ancient attire approached with a benevolent expression and bowed to greet me. "Is this pilgrim here to offer incense and seek blessings?" I surveyed the old man, offering no reply, and instead expanded my ghost domain, binding him firmly in place with invisible chains. The benevolent smile on the old man's face remained unchanged, repeating the inquiry as if he were a mechanical music box. "Is this pilgrim here to offer incense and seek blessings?" It became clear to me, was this a puppet? It appeared similar to my own white-boned ghost servants, all of them mere puppets controlled by the evil wisdom. At that moment, I expanded my ghost domain within the shrine to its maximum capacity. Deathly energy surged through his body, instantly shattering the internal mechanism maintaining his movements. The old man's form began to dissipate, and at the very same moment, every visitor within and outside the shrine froze in unison. Then all of them turned their heads toward me simultaneously. "Pilgrim, please offer your incense." As the words fell, these people began to advance with stiff rhythmic steps slowly swarming toward me from every direction. Seeing this, I quickly constricted the domain of death surrounding my body. An explosion of deathly energy erupted. Those who surged toward me disintegrated the moment they made contact with the shockwave, transforming into fragments of colored paper fluttering across the sky. The entire illusion of the bustling temple began to peel away rapidly, revealing an ancestral hall made of paper submerged at the bottom of the river, with a faint, indistinct statue of a deity enshrined in its center. Under the continuous influence of the deathly energy radiating from me, the statue revealed its true form. It was a suit of armor crafted from thick folded paper. The armor was tightly bound by pitch-black iron chains covered in glowing yellow talismans. The scene before my eyes confirmed my earlier suspicions. Such a craft could never have been executed by the Bayou City Lord's mansion. This was undoubtedly the work of the Bayou sword sect, using the flesh, blood, and souls of mortals to nurture an evil entity, then binding it with chains and talismans. What exactly does the sword sect intend to gain from this evil creature? I then summoned the white-bone ghost attendant, manipulating the skeleton to reach out and grasp the iron chains. The spiritual light of the talismans and the chains clashed violently with my ghost energy, emitting a sizzling sound. The skeleton gave a powerful tug, and with a crisp crack, the chain snapped and the talismans instantly lost their luster. Released from its restraints, the paper armor began to tremble off violently, exuding even more chaotic ghost and death energy as if preparing to counterattack. However, I channeled an even stronger surge of death energy, crushing the entire paper ancestral hall and the armor within it. In less than a moment, all abnormal phenomena vanished, the violent aura subsided, and only a single white paper cutout remained in its place. I picked up the paper cutout and stored it within my inventory. At the same time, inside the Bayou City Lord's mansion, Su Juan was pacing back and forth in his study. Several days had passed, and Wang Wei, along with the elite squad sent to the Forest of the Dead, had vanished without a trace. Furthermore, the stewards and investigators sent yesterday to handle the refugees were also long overdue. What on earth could have happened? Su Jiwan was gripped by a growing sense of unease, feeling as though the situation was slipping beyond his control. Just then, the voice transmission jade talisman against his chest emitted a faint light. Su Jiwan, tomorrow is the celebration of the immortals. The disciples of the sword sect will be descending the mountain. This is the day of the saintly spirit of the higher immortals. Not the slightest mistake will be tolerated. Should any error occur, you will be held accountable. That entire night, Su Jiwan was so troubled that the next day, before the break of dawn, the streets of the city were already lined with kneeling masses of commoners. They wore their finest attire, their faces a complex mixture of reverence, awe, and anticipation. Not long after, nearly 100 figures clad in uniform white robes descended from the horizon, led by Jian Huai Chong. Countless citizens erupted into fervent cheers at this sight. Meanwhile, from a quiet room on the second floor of a restaurant overlooking the main street, Yishu and I sat by the window. My gaze swept across the formation of sword sect disciples in the air, and my brows furrowed slightly. It was strange, for not only the few I'd encountered before, but every disciple of the sword sect possessed an unnaturally pale complexion. The yin energy clinging to them was heavy, identical to that of the paper effigy at the bottom of the river, both infused with a thick, malevolent aura. I paused, my tone laced with a hint of mockery, the living masquerading as ghosts with malevolent spirits playing the part of immortals. This so-called white jade sword sect has turned out to be nothing more than a nest of demons. Yishu assessed the conical hats with great interest. Tell me, do you think everyone under those hats has a gaping hole in their head? Just like that brat Jian Huai Chong? I did not answer immediately, instead shifting my eyes toward the ground, where I saw Su Jiwan leading a group of officials in a brisk, welcoming march. Bowing in salute to the sword sect elders leading from above, his face plastered with a fawning, sycophantic smile. Seeing this, Yishu rubbed his hands in excitement. Shall we take advantage of the crowd and wipe out the entire nest in one stroke? This old master has not stretched his limbs in quite some time. I shook my head and looked toward the towering sacrificial altar in the city center. No need to rush. The main culprit has yet to take the stage. At this moment, after the sword sect disciples had descended, they first paraded through the city to bestow blessings, sprinkling what was claimed to be immortal water meant to ward off evil and misfortune. Thereafter, a solemn sacrificial ceremony was held before the massive altar, and throughout the process, the movements of every sword sect disciple were perfectly synchronized, their faces void of all emotion, while the townspeople remained immersed in a frenzy of fanatical devotion, completely oblivious to the reality of the situation. By high noon, the ceremony entered its most critical stage. The central square was packed with a dense throng, every citizen's eyes fixed upon the front of the altar. Jian Huai Chong stood alone before the multitude. He drew a deep breath and began to recite the final sacrificial prayer. His voice, carried across the square by spiritual energy, resonated with a bizarre and unsettling rhythm. At this very moment, Yishu suddenly twitched his nose. The fog is rising. I gave a brief acknowledgement and continued to observe in silence. As Jian Huai Chong's prayer reached its conclusion, his voice suddenly rose to a fever pitch, laden with a reverence that bordered on insanity. We welcome the Supreme One. As those words escaped his lips, every citizen in the square, along with the lined-up disciples of the sword sect behind them, fell to their knees in unison. In that very moment, they removed their hats and headscarves. The scene before them was exactly as Yishu had surmised. Nearly 100 sword sect disciples revealed the tops of their heads, and it turned out that just like Jian Huai Chong, their skulls had all been pierced through. Among the townspeople kneeling in worship, a significant portion of them bore similar wounds of varying sizes, yet no one showed any sign of abnormality. Everyone acted as if they saw nothing amiss. At this moment, Jian Huai Chong raised his hands to the heavens and continued to chant the Tai Jade scripture. As the words were uttered, a tentacle suddenly erupted from the bloody hole in his forehead, piercing straight into the sky. Almost simultaneously, the harsh midday sun suddenly dimmed, casting a gloomy, pallid light. The tentacle writhed and coiled in the air, eventually swelling into a massive crimson mass of flesh. It extended countless smaller tentacles which struck precisely into every person kneeling below. Yet no one resisted or showed a hint of terror. Instead, they all lifted their heads in unison, using all their might to erupt into a deafening, fanatical cheer. The immortal touches the crown, granting the bond of eternal life. In the next heartbeat, thousands upon thousands of tentacles rapidly siphoned the vitality and flesh-blood energy from the crowd, converging it high above into that gargantuan orb of meat. At that same moment, I set down my teacup. Let us go. It is our turn to take the stage. With those words finished, Yishu and I vanished from the elegant room. On the square, Yishu darted about like a streak of lightning, and a dense, rhythmic sound of gnashing and severing echoed through the air. In the blink of an eye, the thousands of tentacles connecting the sky, the flesh orb, and the devotees below were severed at the root. Sect Master Guo Shoren, seated high upon the podium, suddenly sprang to his feet. Who goes there? Seeing this, the elders behind him turned pale with shock. As for the townspeople whose immortal connection had been severed, they were stunned at first, only to then cast glares of pure fury toward Yishu. It was as if Yishu had prevented them from receiving a supreme blessing. Yishu dusted off his hands, his tone filled with impatience. Damn it, truly a pack of ungrateful fools. Elder Guo immediately issued the command to form the formation and slaughter this person. The sword sect disciples below obeyed the order, moving with mechanical precision. Swords unsheathed to manifest a formation, their killing intent instantly locking onto me and Yishu. I remained expressionless, merely raising my hand. In an instant, dozens of white skeletal spirits and a ferocious ancient serpent materialized in midair. Seeing this, Elder Guo's pupils contracted. So many Tier 3 spectral entities, you are the evil monster from the forest of the dead. I gave him no more time to ponder. With a single thought, I commanded, slaughter them all. The order was executed. The skeletons and the ancient serpent lunged directly at the sword sect disciples who were forming their battle array. Faced with such an absolute disparity in power, those disciples, who had long since been reduced to mere puppets, fell in an instant. Elder Guo watched his two disciples being massacred, his eyes burning with fury. Stop! He joined his hands in a seal, the spiritual energy around his body igniting in a desperate, self-destructive burn. I invite the High Immortal to descend and slay this evil abomination. I offer my own body as a sacrifice. I let out a cold snort, and the ghost realm of the ghost horn erupted, instantly enveloping the entire plaza as the fog dissipated. In the following second, the townsfolk who had been acting in a frenzy were suddenly gripped by terror. Yishu issued a ruthless threat. It is noisy as hell. Keep screaming, and I will slaughter every last one of you. His voice was not loud, but it carried a terrifying killing intent, causing the scene to fall remarkably quiet, leaving behind only the sound of stifled sobs and trembling fear. As for Jian Huai Chong, who stood before the sacrificial altar, the moment the mist was dispelled, his body began to tremble violently. The emptiness and numbness in his eyes receded like a tide, restoring a measure of clarity and agony. He looked at the carnage before him, unsure of exactly what had transpired, with only fragmented memories left in his mind, yet the scene before him served as a merciless reminder. This was the true face of the sword sect and the white jade high immortal. A profound agony flooded his mind as his beliefs shattered, followed by an overwhelming sense of confusion. Yishu glanced at him with some surprise. Kid, you were drained for so long. How are you still able to wake up? Jian Huai Chong looked toward Yishu, Senior. What on earth has happened? Yishu tilted his chin toward the surroundings. See for yourself. Just then, several elders seized the opportunity to descend, landing beside. Protect the vessel, ensure that no harm befalls it. I beseech the upper immortal to descend with haste. Once the sphere of flesh floating in the void had finished absorbing the spiritual energy of Guo Shoren, it descended with a single tentacle once more, its form contracting violently, forcing itself into the body of Jian Huai Chong. Jian Huai Chong unleashed a roar of agony, his body convulsing intensely until moments later, all struggle ceased and Jian Huai Chong slowly opened his eyes. Those eyes, once filled with resilience and confusion, had become cold and emotionless. His gaze fell upon me, the malignant entity of the forest of the dead. I have heard of you for a long time. You may call me Baiyu. I stood there with my hands clasped. My true self is the white bone god sovereign. A strange smile played across Baiyu's face. Ghosthorn rank, you are truly formidable. Your strength as a Tier 3 malignant entity is enough to rival a Tier 4 creature, and combined with the most troublesome death energy, even a Tier 5 entity would not necessarily hold the advantage against you. I admit that for now, I am no match for you. I curled the corner of my lips. You are quite sensible. Are you planning to surrender? The smile on Baiyu's face remained unchanged as he struck the heads of the elders, protecting him with a single palm. The elders perished instantly. You are not the original malignant entity, are you? Do not bother denying it. While malignant entities are powerful, they possess no sentience. They are merely bizarre entities that act according to specific rules. But you possess clear consciousness, purpose, and emotion. In truth, you need not be so guarded against me. We are of the same kind, are we not? Beside me, Yishu spat in disgust. Who is of the same kind as a creature that is neither human nor ghost like you? Baiyu was not angered. He raised his hand, and countless small tentacles sprouted once again from the surface of his body, wrapping around the corpses of all the sword sect disciples on the plaza and absorbing them into himself. Having done all this, his aura grew exponentially. In reality, we are not enemies, we could cooperate. You have achieved success, and I too am on the verge of success. At this moment, I could sense that Bayu's body contained not just one aura but also thick, suffocating malice and karmic sin. He had imprisoned all those souls within his own body, transforming into a true spectral monstrosity. Seeing that I remained unmoved, Bayu did not lose heart. You must also be aware that the Golden Buddha is about to manifest. When that time comes, how could the righteous paths of immortals and Buddhas ever tolerate existences like you and me? But if you and I join forces, Tiandao district will surely be ours for the taking. I am impressed. You are quite knowledgeable. It seems you are well informed indeed. The smile on Bayu's face grew even brighter. In this world, only the status and ability of the Taosui are truly supreme. You have successfully possessed a Taosui vessel and gained a foundation, while I have discovered the method to usurp the divinity and condense faith. We are natural allies. Having said this, he swung his arm forcefully, scattering talismans that radiated a cold, ghostly aura as they circled him. Watch closely. On such an important day of the immortal ascension, as an ally, you should witness this with me. Baiyu produced the white paper he had confiscated from Lu Ming and slammed it firmly against his own forehead, pressing it into the bloodied, missing cavity. Thereafter, the surrounding talismans took flight, striking precisely into predetermined positions around the plaza. They embedded themselves automatically into the ground, instantly illuminating the mysterious patterns beneath the green flagstones. Suddenly, a summoning formation flared to life across the plaza floor, enveloping the countless terrified and desperate city folk. The core of the formation was positioned directly beneath Baiyu himself. At this moment, Bayu's expression bore a conviction that bordered on madness. With the sacrificial blood of this entire city's people and livestock, I shall exchange it to bring the Zhenjiang Temple into this world once more. The resentment of 10,000 living souls shall help me forge a ghost immortal body. However, the moment his words faded, the scene of the paper temple descending failed to manifest. The plaza remained exactly as it had been, met only with a deathly silence. The frantic grin on Bayu's face froze, transmuting into profound shock and disbelief. Impossible. My temple, the labor of heart and blood I painstakingly nurtured with ghostly energy, how could it fail to manifest? He sensed acutely that the connection between himself and the Zhenjiang temple had not been severed, but that link seemed obstructed by something akin to the aura of death. Was it you? What have you done? I smiled. My apologies, but I never agreed to be your ally. Upon hearing this, Bayu's spirit trembled violently, and the power within his body immediately rebelled, spiraling out of control. He suddenly let out a howl of utter agony, his hands clutching his forehead as his body convulsed violently. The mysterious parasite emanated a laugh of undisguised mockery. He kicked Su Jiwan, who was beside him, and spoke, "Old man, take a good look. Is this truly the high immortal you worship? He looks like a complete fool." Su Jiwan cowered, neither daring to retort nor look directly at Baiyu, who now bore a grotesque, demonic appearance. Even now, he felt as though he were trapped in a nightmare. How did a glorious day of honoring the immortal descend into a fanatical sacrificial ritual for the evil god? How could the true face of the Baiyu High Immortal be such a terrifying demon? What then was the purpose of all these years of unwavering devotion, during which he had even sacrificed his conscience to serve the sword sect? On the other side, amidst violent tremors, Baiyu suddenly stumbled, nearly collapsing to the ground. Why? I spoke with a calm tone. Those who follow different paths cannot walk together. But when Baiyu lifted his head once more, the cold, emotionless void in his eyes had vanished, replaced by a look of sheer determination. This time it was not only Yishu who furrowed his brows. Even in my own eyes, a flicker of genuine surprise emerged. Under such levels of corruption and backlash, that this man's consciousness could regain dominance once more was unexpected. Jian Huai Chong struggled to steady himself, then turned toward Yishu and performed a solemn bow. He then turned to me, sinking heavily onto the bluestone floor on both knees. "Junior Jian Huaicheng pays his respects, thanking you, Great One, for saving my life." Just as I was about to speak, I noticed the ominous carvings spreading across the plaza. Although their light had dimmed, they continued to extract energy. The formation no longer sought to communicate with the evil god beneath the river, but instead greedily began to drain the blood and life force of all the townspeople. Countless fine threads emerged from the formation, wrapping around the citizens. Their complexions paled at a pace visible to the naked eye. Their gazes grew vacant as they shrieked in agony, lacking the strength to escape. I frowned slightly and waved my hand, severing a swath of the threads. Wherever the death energy passed, the threads withered and snapped. Yet moments later, even more filament surged forth from the formation's carvings. I could perceive that the power of this formation shared the same origin as the Zhenjiang pillar, carrying with it the distinct essence of the evil god. I sighed softly. This was becoming troublesome. Yishu pursed his lips. "This broken formation is like a porcupine. Can you not just chew a hole through it?" Hearing this, Yishu bristled. "Are you sick in the head? Do you truly take your great master for some timid mouse? Besides, if I were to cast such a spell, there would be a price to pay. In any case, this formation is ineffective against us." At worst, I revealed a look of regret. It was truly not worth it. You, however, are far more important. Jian Huai Chong stood by my side, listening in silence, watching as the formation beneath our feet continued to heartlessly devour the lives of the townspeople, while sensing the white jade within his body still struggling, attempting to seize control once more. In that instant, he grasped the only way to break the deadlock. He kowtowed to me once again. My lord, this formation was originally meant to protect the city, yet it has now become the source of a wicked art that harms the populace. As long as a trace of the white jade remains within this junior's body, this formation will be impossible to truly dispel, and the sword sect will only stray further down the path of evil. Jian Huai Chong's gaze swept across the chaotic plaza, swept over the terrified townspeople, swept past the dazed Su Jiwan, and finally settled before me. My lord, your kindness is something Huai Shuang will forever engrave upon his heart. In the next life I shall offer my service to repay this debt. But the sword sect bestowed upon me the grace of upbringing and instruction. Since the sect has committed such a grave error, this junior cannot shirk the responsibility. Having spoken, he snatched up the great sword from the ground, pressing the blade against his own throat. I am willing to offer my life to assist you in breaking this formation. However, in the very next second, although the sword light flashed, no blood was spilled as a surge of immense power struck his wrist, causing the great sword to fly from his grasp. I let out a soft sigh. I told you before, I hoped you would not regret your decision later. It seems my words fell on deaf ears. Jian Huashuang felt a sudden terror, followed by an overwhelming sense of confusion. To pay debts with blood and repay kindness with one's life. Was there anything wrong with that? He did not believe he would regret it, and he did not fear death. After all, it was the only way to resolve the crisis. I looked into his bewildered eyes and smiled gently. You are quite resilient. To be able to suppress the evil bone with the will of a mortal, but next time do not be so rash. I never said I lacked a solution. If you wish to atone for your sins, then live well. Dying solves nothing and changes absolutely nothing at all. With a wave of my hand, thousands of medicinal pills flew from my sleeves like a gale. These pills landed precisely on the nodes of the formation across the plaza, exploding instantly into torrents of pure energy. Following this, the nodes in the four directions shattered and receded immediately. The threads binding the city's inhabitants snapped and dissolved one by one. The ashen gray pallor upon their faces rapidly faded. Their vacant gazes regained clarity and focus. Although they remained weak and traumatized, their lives were no longer in jeopardy. This entire reversal occurred in the blink of an eye. I stepped before Jian Huaishang, who was still kneeling in a daze. With a flick of my finger, 3 soul-refining pills shot directly into his mouth. Upon entering his body, the pills transformed into a cooling warmth that surged straight into Jian Huaishang's sea of consciousness. The tearing agony subsided rapidly, and his fluctuating soul was enveloped and stabilized by a gentle yet firm force. Jian Huaishang took a deep breath, sensing a clarity and calmness in his mind that he had not felt in a long time. How much longer can you continue to suppress the entity within you? Jian Huaishang carefully sensed the struggle between his own soul and the will of Baiyu, a look of shame appearing on his face. Huaishang could not say for certain. Though weakened by the backlash, his foundation remained, and the two forces continued to clash incessantly. Will 1 month suffice? Hearing this, Jian Huaishang nodded heavily. I offered a gentle smile. That makes things simple. Remember well, if there comes a time when mortals cannot resolve a matter, you may attempt to call upon the gods. Having said that, I flipped my hand and produced the paper-cut Zhen Jiangzi. Sensing the aura of its origin and essence, the formation began to churn violently once more. Quickly, a phantom of the paper-cut Zhen Jiangzi coalesced slowly in the air above the plaza. Following this, guided by the formation, the paper cutout flew swiftly into Jian Huaishang's mind. He immediately withdrew his own consciousness, directing the remnant power of Baiyu within his body to interface with the outside force. Guided by a soul stabilized by the 3 soul-refining pills, the two energies were forced into harmony. As the final light of the formation exhausted itself, the paper cutout turned entirely to ash. Jian Huaishang opened his eyes abruptly. Now clad in paper armor, a flash of green light shimmered in his eyes. He had successfully merged with the great general Zhenjiang. Immediately afterward, the souls and blood energy that Baiyu had absorbed were expelled from his body. They transformed into emotionless paper figures that drifted gently to the ground. Having lost all energy sources and targets, the great formation emitted a muffled sound before falling completely silent. I looked at Jian Huaishang, whose aura had fundamentally changed, then at the eerie paper figures on the ground. It appeared that for the moment the situation had stabilized. Follow by my side for this coming month, and learn to properly adapt to this new body of yours. As for whether or not you wish to purge the sect of its corruption, that is for you alone to decide. Upon hearing this, the paper doll's pale paper faces stiffened while Huaichang the sword nodded heavily. I then turned and left, taking Yishu with me. Not long after, a minor commotion erupted at the city gates as the figures of Shitou and Hongling appeared. Following closely behind them was Ni Chaoxi, acting as their means of transport. Wanger recognized Shitou and Hongling at a single glance, and, overwhelmed with emotion to the point of tears, he hurriedly rushed forward to kneel and pay his respects. Immortal Masters, it truly is you. Thank you for saving our lives. Subsequently, under Hongling's persuasion, all the citizens of Baiyu City expressed their willingness to follow the god to their new sanctuary. The organization of the transport proceeded in an orderly fashion, The massive Guex and Ni Chaoxi took turns ferrying the people toward the forest of the dead. Hongling's efficiency was exceptionally high. Once he had essentially taken charge of all the civilians willing to depart, he quickly led Shitou to seize control of the remaining leadership within the city lord's manor, bringing them before me to await judgment. My gaze swept across these individuals. Each of them was, to varying degrees, reeking of the stench of blood and ominous karma. Thus I summoned Ghostfire and immediately dismantled those with the heaviest karmic debt and the most brutal conduct, turning them into raw materials for my inventory. As for the rest, I gave them a stern warning. While your crimes may not warrant death, I cannot forgive you on behalf of the souls you have persecuted, so you shall go to perform hard labor, and with that I entrusted the task to Shitou. Shitou accepted the mission with solemn gravity. Soon these former nobles and peculiar officials were cast into the deepest reaches of the resentful mine, where they began their lives of forced servitude. Once these matters were settled, I began to organize and assign roles to the newly arrived population. The Shixian stone was brought out once more for deployment, as the population of Bayou City and the surrounding refugees totaled over 30,000. Zhang Kuigu stood amidst the dense crowd, nervously rubbing her calloused hands together. She had spent her entire life bound to the fields and had never once imagined she would leave her homeland. The life she had lived in Bayou City had turned into a nightmare on the day of the immortal celebration. The territory of this mysterious god was just as dark and filled with ghostly energy. At this moment, she trembled as she pressed her hand against the cold stone. A faint yet vibrant green light rippled across the surface of the immortal testing stone. A wood spirit root of imperial-grade aptitude, possessing a unique constitution, abundant harvest which increases agricultural yields by 40%. A natal inheritance, the ancestor of lightning manifest in the world, bearing a subtle fragment of a primordial remnant god, tasked with overseeing all matters of textile production, gestation and growth, accompanied by extraordinary innate fire and control abilities. Under the rays of the setting sun, the growth rate of all crops increases by 100%, output increases by 100%, and there exists a minuscule probability of inducing beneficial mutations in spiritual plants. Suddenly, a majestic male voice resonated throughout the entire courtyard. Zhang Suigu, trembling with fear, hurriedly knelt and proclaimed herself a humble commoner. She had no idea what had just transpired. The immortal testing stone had shown little reaction to those before her, yet she alone had triggered such a spectacle. From this day forward, you shall be responsible for managing the forest fields and directing those black serpents to till the soil and handle other such duties. Zhang Suigu was stunned, shaking her head vigorously like a rattling drum. It cannot be, my lord. This humble woman is but a common farmhand. What virtue or talent do I possess to manage the forest fields? She glanced toward the small black serpents obediently tilling the earth in the distant forest fields, her legs trembling at the sight. Those were clearly genuine beasts of cultivation. How could she possibly command them? Murmurs rippled through the surrounding crowd, their eyes filled with confusion and bewilderment. The forest fields clearly were no ordinary land. They were undoubtedly a treasure of the immortals. Why would the Lord entrust such a grave responsibility to an ordinary peasant? Yet neighbors who knew Zhang Suigu affirmed that the crops she cultivated were truly exceptional, with her grain yields consistently surpassing those of every other household. At this moment, Hong Ling approached her side and gently helped her to her feet. Zhang Suigu, the forest fields do not require literary eloquence, but rather your expertise regarding the soil and the crops. Those black serpents are the Lord's servants. They will obey your every command. Do not belittle yourself. Have faith that the Lord's judgment is never wrong. Zhang Suigu tremblingly raised her head, and Hong Ling placed several medicinal pills into her palm. As the pills took effect, it was like rain falling upon parched earth. A warm current instantly dispelled the cold and exhaustion from her body. Her rough, weathered skin became supple and full of vitality. Her graying hair turned jet black before their very eyes, and a wisp of white light emanated from the crown of her head. The onlookers stood aghast, their mouths agape in sheer astonishment. Is this truly the majestic power of a divine being? To possess the ability to restore one's youth and vigor? This is without a doubt the realm of the gods. Hong Ling patted Zhang Sui's shoulder. To bear such a heavy responsibility, one must possess corresponding strength. This is a recognition and blessing bestowed upon you by the divine, a heavenly endowment that many can only dream of. Zhang Sui instinctively straightened her back, a surge of unprecedented courage and duty swelling within her chest. Zhang Sui bowed deeply forward. I thank you, my lord, for your grace. This subject shall surely exhaust every ounce of her strength to manage Lin Tian for you. I will never betray your trust. The other villagers looked on with unconcealed envy. This was a heaven-sent opportunity, for who would not desire to be favored by a deity? Such cases were not isolated. Among the 30,000 new followers, those possessing special traits were far from scarce. The Gold Master was tasked with mining ore, increasing the yield of rare minerals by 1%, while the Divine Farmer saw the efficacy of his healing arts rise by 1%. The Master Artisan was put in charge of construction and repairs, increasing building speed by 100%, durability by 50%, and providing a chance to comprehend unique architectural blueprints. Under my decree, the veterans guided the newcomers, and the entire territory began to operate with swift efficiency. I utilized medicinal pills to raise the cultivation levels of those with special traits to their peak, ensuring even those with the poorest talent reached the second stage. As for the 100 original villagers, I also selected those who had worked with unwavering dedication, such as Li Bao, the swarthy, stern-faced man in Shidingshan who led dozens of others and bestowed rewards upon them in turn. This ignited a fervent passion within the newly arrived followers, for it became evident that it was not only specialized skills that earned one prestige, but loyalty and diligence were equally rewarded with divine favor. As long as they remained industrious, the day would surely come when they too would receive divine elixirs and ascend as cultivators. Simultaneously acting upon my arrangements, Hongling rapidly reorganized and structured the newly integrated populace. The stockpiles of low-tier materials, once piled high like mountains, finally found their purpose. At the locations I designated, construction began on the Molten Flesh Forge and the Soul-Severing Cliff. Each structure could accommodate 1,000 laborers, and their daily operation required the consumption of vast quantities of first-stage wood, with even second-stage materials serving as energy to compress and refine flesh and blood, or common souls into first or second-stage essence. The output of the existing forest farms immediately became strained. I promptly commissioned 4 more wind shadow forest farms at the edge of the territory, and a greater number of laborers were deployed to them. 2 additional mines were excavated, bringing the total manpower required for all these structures to exactly 10,000 people. As for the remaining population, how should they be arranged? Watching the mining pit where the sounds of misery echoed day and night, and seeing the storehouses overflowing with excavated ore, a clear realization took root in my heart. To build a city, I immediately pulled up the town planning list from the construction menu, taking the central area, where the bone altar and the bloodstone bridge were located as the origin point, and began to draft the layout of the city. The core area would house the bone altar, the bloodstone bridge, and the general's platform. It was designated as a strictly forbidden zone and the center of faith. Other areas would radiate outwards, including a production zone with various structures and a residential area with necessary housing. I handed down the city planning map and the initial construction objectives. My gaze swept across the core administrators I had summoned, finally resting upon Lu Cheng, who possessed the demonic craftsman skill. I immediately manipulated the skeleton to approach him. Lu Cheng bowed hurriedly. "Lord Deity, you shall oversee the planning and construction of the city," I commanded. "Any manpower or materials required may be requested through Hongling." Lu Cheng raised his head abruptly. "To lead the city's construction, this responsibility is far too heavy." He opened his mouth to refuse, but when faced with my calm gaze, and sensing the trust emanating from the townspeople around him, a surge of the craftsman's passion welled up within his chest. He took a deep breath, suppressing all traces of panic. "This lowly one, Lu Cheng, accepts the order. I shall devote my heart and soul to this task until my dying breath." Hong Ling stepped forward. "My lord, what name shall we bestow upon our city?" I pondered for a moment, gesturing toward the land rising beneath my feet. "This city shall be called the City of the Departed." Several days later, on a rugged mountain path, a pair of figures walked in silence. Jian Huai Chong still clutched his iconic greatsword, his complexion even paler than it had been before. His pupils occasionally flickered with a faint, barely perceptible green light, and following behind him were dozens of expressionless paper figures. They maintained the appearance of sword sect disciples as they were in life, even wearing swords fashioned from paper at their waists. This was the final legacy of the sword sect and the burden that Jian Huai had to carry. The disciples of the sword sect had been deeply infected by the ghost energy of Baiyu. Only by borrowing the power of the evil source could their paper bodies be reconstituted. He had wiped out the entire sword sect. This was not an act of vengeance, but because the people of the sword sect, like Jian Huai Chong, traversed the perimeter of the forest of the dead. The view before him suddenly brightened. Although the surroundings remained eerie and ominous, the area was now bustling with human activity. It was a scene of massive ongoing construction. Jian Huaisheng observed it all in silence, instructing his paper doll disciples to bring the supplies retrieved from the sword sect to Hongling. Jian Huaisheng himself headed straight for the center of the territory. He knelt on one knee and addressed me, "My lord. The mission at the sword sect is complete. The remaining resources and disciples have all been brought back." I manifested from the ghost realm and pointed toward the stone immortal stone beside the blood-pointing bridge. "Rise, go over there, and touch it." Jian Huaisheng stood up, pressed his hand, infused with complex, surging power, against the stone, and a display screen filled with text materialized. I scanned the text, my gaze fixing upon the lines Jiangxin and Perfect Vessel, silently realizing why Baiyu had chosen him. A fate such as this is truly the ideal vessel to host a malevolent entity like the river-suppressing child. It is merely a pity he took the wrong path. As for the ghost horn fusion keyword, there is no need for undue concern. Once the cooldown and the sacrificial rites are finished, we shall simply cast him upon the altar. At this moment, I observed Jian Huaisheng's aura, now reserved and contained. With Baiyu's barrier shattered, his life and death protection had vanished. The remnants of the demons in the county must surely be eyeing those villages that have lost their protection. You shall lead an army alongside Shitou to reclaim the surrounding villages that still harbor human life. Jian Huaisheng received the order immediately and found Shitou to convey my new instructions. He then departed to settle the junior disciples brought back from the sword sect. Shitou, for his part, beamed with joy. His eyes glowed with fervor, not only because of his kind nature and inability to bear seeing his kin devoured by demons, but also because this was a task bestowed upon him by the Lord himself. Merely thinking of himself as a divine envoy from the legends, purging evil under the banner of the divine prison, filled his heart with indescribable excitement. Ling, having witnessed it all, raised her hand and smacked the back of his head. Shitou clutched his head, looking at her with grievance. Ouch. Sister, why did you hit me? Hong Ling crossed her arms, looking at him as if he were a fool, and asked, Why are you still standing there dazed? I ask you, what do you think of this man, Jian Huai Chong? Shitou rubbed his neck, confused why. Yet he answered honestly, Brother Huai Xiong is a very good man. He possesses great strength, a steadfast character, and honors his loyalties. Back in Stone Village, didn't he even provide guidance to me? Now that he is valued by the Lord, he will surely become a top-tier strategist under his command and an essential companion to us all. He counted on his fingers, using every word of praise he could muster, but Hong Ling delivered another blow to his head. You truly are an idiot. Do you not feel even a shred of crisis? Shitou stared back blankly, a sense of crisis? Hong Ling lowered her voice, her tone brimming with bitter disappointment. Use your head and think. From Jian Huai Chong's temperament, to his natural talent, and even his combat strength, which of these is not of the highest order? Most importantly, have you not noticed that the Lord cares for him far too much? He personally stabilized his condition, bestowed power upon him, and now he has directly entrusted him with the vital mission of expanding our territory. Hong Ling leaned close to Shitou's ear. You don't want to be replaced in the Lord's heart, do you? The smile on Shitou's face stiffened. Hong Ling let out a cold snort. I shall accompany him on this mission as well. Shitou hesitated slightly. But what about our territory? There is so much to manage. Hong Ling waved her hand, a cunning smile curling the corner of her lips. The construction and administration of Wangzi City are basically on the right track. The rules and regulations have already been established, so it is of no consequence if I depart for a period of time. Furthermore, with the Lord personally presiding over this place, what could possibly go wrong? Upon hearing this, Shitou immediately went to assemble his subordinates to prepare for departure. At the same time, after issuing the instructions for the mission, I made my way to the Imperial Pavilion, formed from the Blood Domain at the center of the Blood Bridge. With a wave of my hand, the pile of jade slips looted from the Baiyu sword sect appeared within the pavilion. At present, Yishu had returned to his mouse form, clutching a roasted duck and gnawing on it vigorously. That fair-skinned newcomer has only just arrived, and he hasn't even finished organizing his own belongings, yet you have already burdened him with work. I was currently examining a dark yellow jade slip. Come to think of it, he did look rather pale. However, Jian Huai Chong is now a thrall of the demonic arts. He knows no fatigue and fears no pain. What psychological burden could there be in exploiting him a little? Yishu rolled his eyes. I think you are truly an old beast. I smiled, my gaze returning to the jade slip. That reminds me, have you heard of the Golden Buddha? Yishu was still sulking over my assessment of the boy, but he answered subconsciously upon hearing the question. Are you referring to the Golden Buddha mentioned by that old ghost of Baiyu? I am not entirely certain of the details. I only know that there is a Buddhist sect in Yuguang Province. Yuguang Province, could it be? The word spoken by Yishu left me stunned. Is this not Tianqi Province? I shook my head. This is the Forest of the Dead, Quendao County, Tiandao District, Yuguang Province. Yishu looked as if his worldview had been shattered. You cannot be serious, right? How did you accomplish this? To move me from Tianqi Province to Yuguang Province in a single step, even a 7th rank expert does not possess the power to span across provinces like this. Dithu was about to continue questioning me, but noticing my brow furrow, I set the ancient manuscript down. My gaze shifted toward the entrance of the undead secret realm. In that very moment, I realized that one of the skeletons I had left behind in the secret realm as raw material had suddenly gone missing. I checked the system interface. The current count of my ghost servants was 99. As my focus shifted away from the Golden Buddha, another notification, long ignored on the system interface, suddenly caught my eye. The quest to explore the undead secret realm. I rubbed my temples, frustrated that the quest progress had remained stagnant. That ruin, blanketed in toxic zombies, was deep and bottomless. The strength of ordinary zombies mostly hovered between the first and second stages, certainly not enough to make a third-stage skeleton vanish completely without even emitting a warning. With this thought, I immediately issued an order, commanding the nearby skeletons to swiftly advance toward the coordinates where contact was lost. Simultaneously, I projected my consciousness into the secret realm to observe. The 5 nearest skeletons quickly arrived at the point where the signal was severed. It was a dilapidated park blanketed by a thick green toxic mist emitted by the zombies. However, it was strangely quiet. The number of zombies here was abnormally low. Under normal circumstances, the number of zombies should not simply decrease. I manipulated the skeletons to conduct a thorough search and quickly discovered traces of combat. The ground was splattered with the black fluid characteristic of the zombies. There were clear claw marks, along with a distinct trail dragging toward the depths of the park. Following the trail, the skeletons bypassed a flower bed now reduced to soil and rotting roots, only to find a grotesque creature lying prone, with several zombie corpses scattered by its side. My expression immediately turned peculiar. Is this not the Stonebone Beast, a creature that struck terror into the hearts of men in my past life? Stonebone beasts feed on humans, but when fresh prey cannot be found, they are more than willing to sustain themselves on zombies. Many human settlements with weak defenses had been ravaged by these strange beasts appearing in packs. But the question remained, why would a Stonebone Beast appear here? This was merely a secret realm obtained from the system's lucky draw. Why would such a monstrous thing, iconic to my past life, emerge here? At this thought, my will stirred, and the 5 third-stage skeletons erupted into action simultaneously. In just a single encounter, their sharp bone claws eased. I immediately deduced that it was not that creature. Although this stonebone beast was a threat, it was absolutely impossible for it to slay another skeleton of the same rank in an instant, nor could it have prevented any information from being transmitted. Shortly thereafter, more skeletons rushed toward the scene. Under my command, the skeletons centered their formation on the park, initiating a systematic carpet-style search and sweep. After a period of activity, we managed to slay 5 or 6 more stonebone beasts hiding in the vicinity, but apart from them, no other powerful entities were discovered. This left me utterly baffled as to what exactly could have obliterated my skeleton in the blink of an eye. I then ordered all the ghostkin currently operating within the secret realm to heighten their vigilance, paying particular attention to the park area for any signs of movement. Just as I prepared to withdraw my consciousness from the secret realm, I caught a glance at the mission board. The progress for the undead secret realm exploration had reached 1%. Seeing this, I could not help but ponder, was it because we had cleared away the stonebone beasts, which did not belong in this realm, that the exploration had truly begun? Or was it that by slaying them, we had brushed against a deeper secret hidden within this realm? Regardless, this 1% progress had finally opened a crack in the door to the undead treasure trove for me. At this moment, Yishu had finished devouring the roast duck and was lying beside Yuting, licking its paws with an expression of lingering greed. When Yishu looked up and happened to see the corpses before me, it tilted its head, its crimson eyes filled with disdain. What is this ugly thing again? It is a stonebone beast. Have you never seen one before? Yishu shook its head. I have never seen one. This old master has wandered for many years, but I have truly never encountered anything like this, neither demon, nor spirit, nor ghost, nor monster. Hearing this, my heart stirred. Even Yishu, a demonic creature that had lived for over 300 years, had never seen one. The stonebone beast had all but confirmed my previous hypothesis. These strange beasts were very likely not native creatures of this world. In the days that followed, I monitored the movements of the skeletons within the secret realm, while simultaneously perusing the ancient scrolls and secret records brought back from Bayou City. I discovered that there was, in fact, another evil-tainted entity within the Forest of the Dead. I sought out an old man to inquire about the matter. He recounted that approximately 500 years ago, this place was guarded by a humanoid evil-tainted entity, possessing eerie supernatural abilities and wreaking great havoc. Later, the mountain lord Xiaofeng, who originally ruled the Guandao district, waged a great battle against the evil-tainted. In the end, the mountain lord perished in the battle, and the whereabouts of the evil-tainted became unknown. It was only after that incident that Bayun descended upon this land, seized the territory that once belonged to the mountain lord, and established Bayou City. The old man realized his mistake only after he had finished speaking. The evil-tainted that guarded the Forest of the Dead, was that not the lord himself? He immediately broke into a cold sweat, his wrinkled face contorting like a withered chrysanthemum, unsure of how to offer an apology. I listened in silence. I knew the humanoid creature mentioned by the old man was certainly not me. My ability to manifest a human form relies mostly on illusions created by the ghost domain. My true form remains the white bone altar. It seems the secret Forest of the Dead holds no shortage of mysteries. I marveled to myself that a tiny desolate county could produce 3 such wicked creatures. I do not know whether to call this place a land of exceptional spirits and hidden talents, or simply conclude that the resources of this newbie village are all hidden treasures. After these reflections, I turned my gaze to the latest notifications from the system interface. You have successfully recruited a human follower, received 1 yellow tier gacha ticket, and gained 254 new followers. I have received many such notifications over the past 2 days. It appears the efforts of Jian Huai Chong and Shitou to recruit surrounding villages are proceeding quite smoothly. Without delay, I used the 5 accumulated yellow tier gacha tickets all at once. Most were rare tier 1 and tier 2 materials suitable for construction. However, I did obtain a tier 5 heaven and earth treasure, the blood Bodhi vine, which can produce Bodhi hearts if nourished regularly with blood. Consuming them can enhance the user's spiritual root aptitude. The higher the quality of the blood used for nourishment, the higher the quality of the resulting Bodhi fruit. Upon seeing this, my eyes gleamed with intensity. This item has the power to alter the cultivation potential of an individual. For those followers with ordinary aptitudes, its significance is profound, and it offers the advantage of sustainable production. Thinking of this, I promptly planted the blood Bodhi vine within the Hutu forest. With the resonance of the forest fields and the special constitution of Jiangsui, its growth rate should be exceptional. Meanwhile, at the Li family village, Jian Huai Chong stared impassively at the demonic blood staining the ground red, silently wiping the blood from her heavy sword. On the ground lay the massive corpse of a demon, still twitching faintly. Villagers huddled behind the ruined fences, yet their faces held no joy of surviving the disaster, but rather a mix of terror and disbelief. The monster was dead, but the one who slew it did not look much like a human either. Whispers and murmurs spread among the villagers. The fear did not vanish with the destruction of the demon, but instead gravitated even more heavily toward Jian Huaisheng. At this moment, Hong Ling stepped forward, shattering the stagnant atmosphere. Respected elders and fellow villagers, we are not from the city of White Jade. He gestured toward Jian Huaisheng. This is Lord Jian Huaisheng, the Inspector of Discipline, serving under the Bone Divine Venerable of the City of the Dead. The Divine Venerable feels deep compassion for the suffering of this world. He has specially dispatched us to purge the demons from all corners and protect the remaining sparks of the human race. Hearing this, Jian Huai Chong looked stunned, feeling a twinge of shame at the title Hong Ling had so casually bestowed upon him, yet Hong Ling remained completely composed. He paused only for a moment, his gaze sweeping across the still bewildered faces of the villagers. I know you remain skeptical, but I ask you, the man-eating demons that have dwelt here for so long, killing without a blink, has White Jade City ever once cast a glance in your direction? Have the days you spent worrying about your next meal not been miserable enough? These words struck deep, piercing the very hearts of everyone present. Many hung their heads, their expressions filled with desolation. Hong Ling's voice suddenly rose, commanding and clear, "Our Lord possesses boundless power and has already established a new city at the edge of the Dead Man's Forest. Within that city lie hundreds of acres of fertile fields. There every soul shall be fed. Those under the Lord's command, like this Inspector of Discipline, exist solely to slay demons and eradicate evil." He pointed toward Jian Huai Chong. The form the inspector bears now is a divine vessel granted to him, specifically to slay demons and protect humanity. If it were not so, how could he have so easily slain this vicious beast that you were all powerless to resist? The villagers looked at the massive corpse of the demon on the ground, then at the heroic figure of Jian Huai Chong. The fear in their hearts was gradually replaced by a burgeoning hope. Then the eldest elder of the village stepped forward and bowed deeply before Jian Huai Chong and Hong Ling. "We thank the Divine Venerable's envoys for saving our lives. We, the people of Lijiao Village, are willing to relocate to the new city and seek the protection of the Divine Venerable." Just as the villagers of Lijiao, swayed by Hong Ling's persuasion, were preparing to pack their belongings to follow them back to the city of the dead, a cold shout suddenly echoed from outside the village. "Hold!" Everyone turned toward the voice to see 7 or 8 figures clad in black robes approaching with hurried steps. Hong Ling eyed the black-robed men. Who were they? Jian Huaisheng's expression turned grim. "They are the Xuanshui Guards, the demon-purging organization under the direct jurisdiction of Lantau City. They wield immense authority, tasked with monitoring demonic activity and handling major incidents of evil." At the lead was a cold-looking man named Xing Yue, the captain of the Xuanshui Guard unit. Xing Yu looked at the villagers. "Do not listen to these charlatans and be deceived by such sinister appearances. How could someone with such a grotesque form be—" Having said that, a man in black robes drew a compass-like magical artifact from his chest. The needle spun erratically, emitting a faint spiritual glow. After a thorough examination, his expression shifted, and he leaned close to Xing Yue to report with frantic urgency. "Captain, I have detected death energy identical to the residual aura found at the ruins of White Jade City. It confirms beyond doubt that the target is indeed the evil spirit and its followers." Xing Yue's heart sank. She hurriedly ordered her squad to take up formation while clearly announcing the situation to the bewildered villagers. "We are the Profound Water Guards of Blue Island City. White Jade City lost all contact with City Lord Sujian several days ago. The entire inner city of the White Jade Sword Sect's ruins is devoid of life, a tragedy that has sent shockwaves through the prefecture. City Lord Su was a subordinate of the prefect. Now that the prefect has been harmed by this evil spirit, we are acting under special orders to investigate and apprehend Yuan Xiong." As these words were spoken, a wave of unrest rippled through the villagers. The spark of hope that had just been ignited was crushed by overwhelming fear. They looked at the righteous aura of the Profound Water Guards, then back at Jian Huai Chong, whose form was clearly not that of a mortal, unsure of what to believe. Stone stood to the side, bellowing in fury at their falsehoods. Su Jiwan was nothing but a lapdog who colluded with the old ghost of White Jade. They conspired to sacrifice every soul within the city walls. It was this divine being who intervened, saving the lives of countless people. "You!" Before he could finish his sentence, Xing Yu struck. A blade of concentrated azure energy tore through the air, aimed directly at Stone. Jian Huaisong stepped in front of Stone, raising an arm covered in paper armor to take the full brunt of the strike. At that moment, a burning rage surged within him. Jian Huaisong found the hypocrisy of these Profound Water Guards utterly intolerable. When countless villages across the island were slaughtered by demons, where were these so-called Profound Water Guards? When White Jade prepared to blood sacrifice an entire city, where were they then? Yet, the very moment a villain like Su Jian met his end, simply because he was a city lord appointed by the prefect himself, they appeared immediately. Jian Huaisong could endure suspicion. He could endure the cold, judging stares, but he could never forgive their slander against the divine being who saved countless lives and granted him a new existence, labeling him an evil spirit. On the other side, Hongling and Stone, seeing the opposition brazenly initiate hostilities, erupted in anger. They drew their weapons and joined the fray instantly. Fire talismans flew wildly as the energy of ancient swords roared. The two sides immediately descended into a chaotic skirmish. Fortunately, both sides still exercised some restraint, intentionally steering the destructive shockwaves away from the unarmed villagers. However, Jian Huaisong alone struggled as his mind was continuously besieged by the insidious whispers of White Jade. Look closely. Do these self-proclaimed righteous ones ever truly care about the lives of ants like you? All they concern themselves with is their own authority and order. Are you not filled with rage? With resentment? Release me and let me help you tear these hypocrites to shreds. Just as Hong Yak's suspicious blade descended once more, Jian Huaisong's movements abruptly stalled. The clarity in his eyes was replaced by an eerie jade-colored light. A low, twisted laugh emanated from Jian Huai Chong's throat. From the fissures in his paper-like armor, countless tentacles erupted, striking toward all the surrounding Xuan Shui guards. Jian Huai Chong looked toward Hong Yak and chuckled softly. My thanks to you, Captain Hang. Were it not for your assistance, it would have cost me far more effort to break free. Before his words could fade, the tentacles pierced precisely into the skulls of the Xuan Shui guards, frantically draining their brain marrow and vital essence. Seeing this, Shitou felt his eyes nearly split from rage. Big brother Huaisong, he cried, desperately lunging forward. He struck the tentacles with his ancient sword while shouting at the top of his lungs, Wake up, big brother Huaisong, do not let him control you. Baiyu let out a cold snort. Insignificant ants dare to disturb me? With a casual flick of his hand, he detached a tentacle, plunging it straight toward the crown of Shitou's head. Shitou hurriedly swung his blade with all his might to parry the strike, yet he was still sent flying backward by the force. On the other side, Hong Ling was faring no better. The tentacles ignored the obstruction of her firewall, piercing straight through her shoulder. In her desperation, Hong Ling spoke with calm clarity, Jian Huaisong, do not let him control you. If the Lord were to know that his most loyal follower had been reduced to a puppet for the heavenly demon, what would he think? These words struck deep into the sea of consciousness of Jian Huaisong. Baiyu's expression shifted as he clearly sensed Jian Huaisong's consciousness surging violently at that single sentence. The muscles on his face contorted, his body trembling intensely, and the rampaging tentacles ground to a halt. Baiyu let out a roar of extreme agony as the jade light in his eyes flickered erratically. Within the sea of consciousness, Jian Huaisong was locked in a fierce struggle against Baiyu. Most loyal follower, you fool, you are nothing more than a convenient blade in his hand. Once you are useless, your end will be far more miserable than mine. No sooner had the words been spoken than his left eye suddenly regained its clarity. Silence, I will not allow you to insult the Lord. The left side of his face began to laugh maniacally once more. You already possess this wicked physique. Why must you bow and grovel before another? I am trying to save you. Abandon your resistance, surrender this body to me, and once I restore my power, you shall be the founding hero of my new empire. Veins bulged across the right side of Jian Huaisong's face. It was impossible, for in this life he served only his master. At one moment he raised his hand, intending to deliver a finishing blow to the Xuanshui guards, and the next he forcibly restrained his own arm. His body trembled uncontrollably, and the tentacles surrounding him lashed out in a chaotic frenzy. The Xuanshui guards temporarily escaped their predicament, surviving by a hair's breadth. A young Xuanshui guard whispered, Leader Xingyue, what is happening here? Xingyue shook his head. Those corrupted by demonic forces often fall into such madness. Jian Huasong roared coldly, Shut your mouth as well. A tentacle struck down, rendering Xingyu unconscious instantly. The remaining Xuanshui guards trembled, huddled together in fear, not daring to utter another word. On the other side, with a guttural roar of extreme agony, the jade glow in Jian Huaisong's eyes slowly faded away. Baiyu, get back in there. After a moment, all the frenzied dancing tentacles began to wither and retract back into his body. Jian Huaisong stumbled, dropping to one knee. He raised his head to see Shitou and Hong Ling rushing toward him, struggled to stand, his gaze sweeping over the Xuanshui guards on the ground, then shifted his focus to Shitou and Hong Ling. Take all of them back and hand them over to the master to decide their fate. Hong Ling sighed at the sight of Jian Huaisong's condition, then, coordinating seamlessly with Shitou, she quickly confiscated all the magical artifacts from the Xuanshui guards on the ground. These captives were bound one by one, using the ropes they had seized. The villagers of Lijiao watched the scene in absolute silence. Their initial hesitation completely vanished, leaving only a sense of submission as they prepared to head to the new city, following Jian Huaisong and the others as they departed toward Wangzi City. Much later, Jian Huaisong led the Xuanshui guards to the altar of the Baigu master. Huaisong had completed his mission. He reported the day's events concisely and clearly without any concealment or evasion. I sat composed upon the white bone altar, watching as a dark elixir flew from an urn toward Jian Huaisong. This is a Tier 3 soul-stabilizing pill. It will help you steady your soul and suppress distracting thoughts. Next, have Hong Ling and continue the mission that remains unfinished. Huaisong received the elixir with both hands, sensing the pure soul power within, yet his heart sank. He keenly perceived the implications in my words, and could not help but raise his head. My lord, will you no longer entrust future missions to Huaisong? Is it because my loss of control today has caused you disappointment? I smiled indifferently. Why would I be disappointed? Although you nearly lost control today, you ultimately relied on your own willpower to suppress Baiyu, captured the Xuanshui guard, and prevented a greater catastrophe. Furthermore, you did not fail the villagers who placed their trust in you. You have performed remarkably well. Upon hearing that I was not disappointed in him, the taut string of Jian Huaisong's mind finally relaxed slightly, though a trace of dejection remained unavoidable. He lowered his hands respectfully. Huaisong understands. The evil essence within your body and the remnant soul of Baiyu have yet to stabilize. Until the conflict of your divine soul is fully eradicated, it is truly unwise for you to venture out alone to perform tasks. Remain by my side for the time being. Jian Huaisong cupped his hands. I shall strictly obey your orders, my lord. Regarding this matter, I had already formulated a plan in my heart, keeping Jian Huaisong by my side temporarily. Firstly, it is for the convenience of watching over him personally, preventing the unstable factors within his body from erupting once more. and secondly, to observe closely the changes in him after merging with the essence of the evil essence. Perhaps from there I might uncover more mysteries regarding the origin of this evil power. Of course, resting is certainly out of the question for him. A body infused with evil essence that knows no fatigue, coupled with a cultivation level that desperately needs stabilization and a mental state that requires refinement, how could I allow him to remain idle? I must exploit him. I must certainly exploit him to the fullest. Oh no, I mean to say I'm conducting high-intensity adaptive training and ideological education, ensuring he has no spare time to dwell on negative thoughts, lost in self-reproach or the shadows of the past. I offered a silent commendation for my own benevolence. I then retrieved the artifacts brought by Jian Huai Chong. Most were unremarkable, possessing nothing out of the ordinary. Only one object, a heavenly mechanism lock, caught my eye. It appeared to be a low-grade sealing artifact, so I picked it up quite casually. With a soft click, the heavenly mechanism lock sprang open. Several faint rays of light swept out from within. As they touched the ground, they revealed the prisoners trapped inside. There were 3 shivering flower demons, along with 1 nightmare beast curled into a ball. Yishu let out a mocking laugh without the slightest hesitation. Hang Yue, is this the glorious achievement of your profound water guard in exterminating demons? Are the beings you hunt merely these insignificant spirits, those who cannot even speak human language? Hearing this, Hong Yue's expression shifted from pale to crimson. He was well aware that slaughtering such weak demons was no display of true martial prowess. Yet he still stiffened his neck to justify his actions. Demons are demons, though they are small today, who is to say they will not wreak havoc across the land in the future? To prevent disasters before they occur, that is the duty of our profound water guard. Upon hearing this, Yishu narrowed his eyes. To prevent disasters before they occur, a fine statement indeed. In the Thousand Islands district, there are countless great demons who claim mountains as their own kingdoms, slaughtering villages and raising camps at the slightest whim. How many of those have your profound water guard actually subjugated? Hong Ye was choked into silence. He took a deep breath, his face etched with a look of firm resolve. Whether you choose to kill or carve me up, do as you please. Upon joining the profound water guard, I long ago regarded death as lighter than a feather. You cultists shall not humiliate me. The city of Blue Peach will surely seek justice for us. The members of the profound water guard behind him also raised their heads one by one, clearly possessing the same unwavering conviction. I waved my hand dismissively. Such good labor, why should it be wasted so carelessly? Send them to undergo forced labor. Let them sit at the same table as the trusted subordinates of City Lord Su. I am sure City Lord Su down below will rest much easier with so many familiar faces to keep him company. Yishu let out a strange shrill laugh and pointed at the 4 small demons. And what about these pieces of trash? I looked toward the flower demons and said, send them to Lu Cheng. He is the person primarily responsible for the construction of the city. Currently, there are many areas in Prince City still under development. Send him a few assistants who can help cultivate and improve the environment. Although the flower demons cannot speak, they possess a sharp spiritual intuition. They realized that not only had they escaped destruction, but they would also be provided with shelter and purpose. They were moved to the point of tears. He tried nudging the nightmare piglet with the tip of his toe. And what of this creature? Is this of your own kind? Send it to old woman Li to raise for amusement. Is she not currently overseeing the matters concerning the livestock? Perhaps if it is raised, it may prove useful in time. Yi bristled instantly. Who shares a kin with such trash? It is not even manifested into a demon. Can a dream nightmare and a dream demon truly be compared? Following this, Jian Huai Chong personally delivered the flower demon to Lu Cheng, while the profound water guards were escorted deep into the weeping cavern. At that moment, I heard the chime of the system notification. Opening the interface, I saw that the count of my ghost servants had decreased by 1. This accursed secret realm had devoured yet another of my ghost servants. I immediately established a connection to the servant's location within the realm, which was still marked at that ruined park. The park was currently swarming with countless pitch-black insects, frantically gnawing on everything in sight. The concrete on the ground, the rusted fences, and even the hardy mutant plants could not escape this misfortune. I unleashed the ghost prison. The deathly aura instantly saturated the entire area of the park. The swarming insects, previously engrossed in their feeding, paused for a fleeting moment. Immediately thereafter, a chorus of countless cracking sounds erupted. On the glossy black shells of the insects, pale skeletal veins began to manifest with alarming speed. Their sturdy exoskeletons had effectively become a warm vessel for the cultivation of bone. Without warning, sharp, twisted bone spikes erupted, piercing through their shells. In the blink of an eye, the black sea of insects that had covered the ground vanished, replaced by a white forest of needles formed from countless bone spikes. Every single insect was impaled by the bone that grew violently from within its own body. They remained in the positions and poses they held at the moment of death, eternally frozen in their final agony. Such is the power of the evil malice, using death itself as the brush. It is the infectious assimilation brought forth by the reconstruction of life forms. I was quite satisfied with the bone spike hell I had fashioned with my own hands. It was then that I discovered a fissure had appeared in the center of the park. The surrounding space was slightly distorted. I carelessly chose a skeletal corpse to scout ahead, controlling it as it stepped into the warped space. After a brief sensation of weightlessness and spatial displacement, Before my eyes stretched an endless, desolate expanse of golden wasteland where scorching sand whipped through the air under the fury of the gale. Not far away, a village lay settled upon this plain. The wells had long since run dry, and the shutters of the thatched huts were tightly barred. Within the temple courtyard there was not a single sign of poultry or livestock, nor even the smallest insect scuttling in search of sustenance. The only lingering flickers of life emanated from the villagers scattered throughout the settlement. Most of them sat slumped upon their doorsteps or leaned against withered trees, their hollow eyes staring blankly into the ash-gray sky, their chests rising and falling with breaths so faint they were barely perceptible. Then came the moment the skeleton stepped out from the beam of light, shattering the deathly stillness like ice breaking upon a frozen lake. Every pair of eyes in the village locked onto the figure of the skeleton. The next instant they swarmed from every direction toward the skeleton, dropping to their knees in unison. An emissary of the revered god has descended upon our Shikan village. Quickly, bring forth the final offerings. We begged the emissary to show mercy and bestow upon us the divine sea. My will was anchored to that skeleton, and from the moment I entered the light, I sensed something amiss. With every command issued to the skeleton, the feedback I received in return was agonizingly sluggish. I could sense clearly that the distance between the skeleton and my true self in the forest of the dead was vast. The bone summoning technique was weakening rapidly. Before long, my skeletal servant would be unable to even twitch. As the technique failed, I lost all control over the skeleton. Under the gaze of countless fervent eyes, the skeleton managed only 2 steps before it collapsed with a resonant clatter, shattering into a disjointed heap of dry bones upon the earth. A momentary silence hung in the air, only for a wave of even greater madness to erupt. The divine sea. It is the divine sea. A dozen people lunged forward like starving wolves, fighting until blood was shed, all for a mere scrap of bone from the skeleton. They clawed and cursed at one another, treating the remains as if they were a peerless treasure. My consciousness, trapped within the skull now lying on the ground, could only watch this farce unfold. Finally, an exceptionally burly man kicked aside a few others and snatched me up. Shielded by his family, he broke through the frantic crowd and fled into his home. The interior was shrouded in deep gloom. The man set me down, and his family gathered around, their eyes burning with intense greed. The old woman urged him hurriedly, "Zhao Meng, bury it quickly, just like the bone fragment the previous emissary left behind." Zhao Meng nodded, retrieved a jar that was still relatively intact, and ran to the arid courtyard behind the house, digging a shallow hole with a stone shard. He placed me solemnly into the pit and slowly covered it with earth. Having finished, he crouched before the mound, letting out a long sigh as his shoulders finally slumped in relief. Zhao Meng turned his head and offered a smile to his family. "It is done, it is buried. Our home now has a guardian spirit, and tonight we can finally sleep in peace." Hearing these words, his wife staggered, her eyes instantly turning red. She grasped the man's arm and asked, "Husband, is it truly so? Is it just as the legends from Blackwater Swamp say, that to bury it is to receive its protection?" Zhao Meng gripped his wife's hand tightly. "It is the absolute truth. I heard that old Wang of Blackwater Swamp once encountered a walking skeleton. Seeing that it looked pitiful, he dug a pit, guided the skeleton into it, and laid it to rest. Ever since that day, no one in Blackwater Swamp has died, and word of this has spread throughout Kushi County." The old woman pressed her palms together before her chest and bowed toward the mound of earth. "The heavens have finally opened their eyes," Zhao Meng's wife said, clutching their child. "This is wonderful. Tonight we can finally sleep soundly." On the other side, I lay buried in the earth as darkness swallowed my vision, and the connection to the skull was completely severed. As my consciousness returned from the forest, the system issued a notification. Ghost servant count decreased by 1. I was deeply frustrated. Not only did I lose a ghost servant after all that effort, but I was also forced to experience the sensation of being torn apart. Fortunately, it was not without gain, as the progress for the side quest to explore the undead secret realm flickered and increased by 0.5%. I observed the spatial rift gnawed open by the exotic insects, confirming that it remained temporarily stable, and decided to venture out to scout it myself. My consciousness silently slipped through the rift into the secret realm, descending once more upon Shikan village. It was late into the night here, and every household had their doors tightly bolted. I released my divine sense to probe the surroundings when, suddenly, I caught a trace of killing intent before the entrance of a house. Looking closer, I saw that the monstrosity was actually knocking on the resident's door. I quietly unleashed my ghost prison, and death energy began to spread across the threshold like a spiderweb, preparing to probe the connection of that wretched creature. However, just as my death energy was about to make contact, its killing intent swiftly fled into the distance, vanishing into the thick veil of night. I did not even have the time to discern what kind of abomination it truly was. At the same moment, Zhao Meng sat slumped on the ground behind the door. "It is gone. It has truly left." His younger brother, Zhao Yong, also loosened his grip on the wooden beam he had been clutching. The two were overcome with emotion, yet they struggled to keep their voices down, afraid of waking the children. They huddled together, straining their ears for any sound outside the door, intending to keep vigil like this until the first light of dawn. The following day, the villagers of Shikan village poked their heads out from their doorways, confirming that the darkness had truly passed. Without prior arrangement, they gathered together by the ancient well. The village chief began to take a head count, as was his custom. As the final head count was completed, a collective gasp echoed through the crowd. Not a single person was missing. The village chief asked everyone whose house was visited by the knocking last night. Zhao Yong instinctively raised his hand. However, to the shock of both him and the entire village, 3 or 4 other households also raised their hands one after another. Among those households, some had only managed to secure a single finger bone, while others had only recovered a small fractured rib fragment. The old village chief could not help but turn his gaze toward those families. Your homes were all knocked upon? And what happened afterward? Zhao Yong stepped forward. It knocked 7 or 8 times, and then there was nothing but silence. Zhao Yong suddenly pointed toward the back of his house and then toward the homes of the other households. It was the roaming ghost deity that descended yesterday. Those buried in our homes protected us, preventing that life-taking specter from entering. Upon hearing these words, the village chief's eyes lit up. Heaven has eyes. Our Shikon village is saved. Return quickly and offer sacrifices at the burial sites of the divine remains. 3 incense sticks, morning and evening. Having spoken, the village chief went to inspect every home that had been visited by the knocking the previous night. I remained hidden in the shadows, calmly observing all that transpired. I understood the truth behind their interpretation all too well. The specter that had knocked at the doors last night retreated, likely because the death aura I left behind in the remains had taken effect. Once that creature sensed my presence, it chose to flee and avoid confrontation. It is evident that it acts with extreme caution. However, this is not a long-term solution. The death aura remaining on the bones will gradually dissipate over time. After all, they are not true malevolent spirits. They are merely ghostly thralls that I summoned. On the other side, the villagers were discussing with great fervor, their topic shifting inevitably to the neighboring Huangshawa village, which faced a dire situation. I wonder how Huangshawa fared last night. Their village lacked strong, able-bodied men to stay awake through the night. But didn't they also have a ghost deity descend upon them? Surely, they must be all right. The old village chief pondered for a moment. We must send someone to check on them. We are all villages situated within the same county. We cannot. If that fails, we should bring them all back to our village. At the very least, our village's deity is truly capable of protecting them. Zhao Yong stepped forward proactively. Village chief, allow me to go. I will take 2 others with me. After receiving the village chief's approval, Zhao Yong set off without delay. I followed leisurely behind Zhao Yong, Zhao Meng, and their companions. Huangshawa is not considered particularly far from Shikon village, yet the closer we drew, the denser the aura of death became in the air. My gaze swept across the village, and I was quickly drawn to a dilapidated thatched cottage on the outskirts, where a woman stood right before the doorway. The aura emanating from her was exceedingly strange, as if it were composed of countless intertwined resentments of the dead, mixed with a form of righteous covenant, similar to a corpse spirit with both forces twisted together in a grotesque fusion. Seeing this, my brows furrowed tightly. The strength of this woman must be formidable, at the very least on par with a corpse spirit. I extended my divine sense to probe, and at last I perceived her true form. That beautiful face transformed in an instant into the skull of a beetle, its compound eyes flashing with a chilling cold light. At that very moment, the woman tilted her body slightly toward my direction and politely performed a standard lady's curtsy. This sight caused my heart to grow immediately vigilant, with my aura restrained yet ready to erupt, prepared to react to any sudden attack or bizarre transformation at a moment's notice. However, after the woman finished her salute, she made no further movements. While maintaining high alert toward the mysterious woman, I simultaneously diverted a portion of my attention toward Zhao Meng. At that moment, he was loudly questioning the villagers of Huangshawa. Folks, were you all safe throughout the night? Did your guardian deity manifest? The crowd erupted into a murmur, and several elders who appeared to be village leaders exchanged glances. Among them, an old man with white hair and a beard stepped forward. Are you the boy from the Zhao family in Shikon village? There were indeed knocking sounds last night. 2 other households quickly spoke up. My house had 5 knocks and mine had 7 or 8. Everyone is here, not a single person is missing. The villagers of Huangshawa began whispering amongst themselves until someone suddenly recalled something. And what of that ugly old woman? Has anyone gone to check on her household yet? Upon hearing this, a few people instinctively turned their heads toward that ruined cottage, yet the expression of that strange woman did not change, as if she had not heard the crowd's discussion at all. But a child ran up to the woman. Sister Pooh, is the ugly old woman still all right? The woman squatted down and offered a dried locust to the child's mouth, revealing a mechanical, hollow smile. The young boy ravenously devoured the dried locust. The woman reached out and gently stroked the child's head. It is all right, we are both doing quite well. Hearing this, the boy danced joyfully back to his mother's side, only to have his ear pinched in a brief reprimand. How could you dare to eat something offered by a fool? Are you truly itching for a lesson? However, the woman seemed to disregard this, simply pulling a small notebook and a piece of charcoal from her robes to jot down a line of text. I looked closer from a distance and saw the inscription, Record of Observation, Entry 32, offering food to a hungry fledgling and providing tactile comfort through head stroking. The action effectively terminates the subject's crying behavior, judged as a benevolent act. However, it may elicit dissatisfaction from surrounding adult specimens. Witnessing this scene, my brow furrowed deeply. Her logic of behavior did not stem from empathy, but rather from observation, documentation, analysis, and subsequent execution. As I was deep in thought, the woman turned and entered the house. I followed immediately, stopping at a distance of 3 paces from her. Sensing my presence, the woman turned to meet my gaze, and I voiced the question heavy on my mind. What are you? The woman opened the small notebook in her hands, upon which was written, "When faced with an inquiry from an unknown entity, one should first display courtesy." She then lifted her head, the corners of her mouth twitching as she emitted a sound. "Greetings, sir. My name is Pooh." I furrowed my brow. "Why do you go by that name?" Pooh scratched her head. "Indeed, why would that be?" My gaze fixed upon her, and I channeled my divine sense, attempting to probe her foundation. This time, I could clearly perceive those 2 massive streams of aura. Together, they formed the very structure of this entity named Pooh. Within her body, there was none of the soul fluctuation that a normal living being should possess, only a core of consciousness struggling to maintain equilibrium. I shifted my line of questioning. "Are you learning?" Pooh nodded, then proceeded to write something else in her notebook. I caught a glimpse of the new observation entry. New subject observed, status unknown, possesses a high desire to understand me. Countermeasure strategy, undetermined. Preliminary assessment, high danger level yet temporarily devoid of hostility. This monster is quite intriguing. You may address me as the divine venerable Whitebone. Pooh nodded, struck out the 2 unclear characters beneath the observation subject, and wrote down the 4 characters, divine venerable Whitebone. A thought struck me, and I suddenly reached out to produce a soul-stabilizing pill. "This is for you." Pooh's body stiffened abruptly, her eyes fixed intently upon the soul-stabilizing pill resting in my palm. From her throat came a series of muffled insect-like clicks that she could not repress. Drool began to trickle from the corner of her mouth, yet simultaneously the human facade she had constructed was locked in a violent struggle against her monstrous instincts. At last she drew a deep breath, forcibly suppressing her primal urge to devour. She flipped open her notebook once more and recorded the 15th entry. Accepting gifts from others without cause is an impolite act. One must inquire as to the reason. She raised her head to look at me, and seeing that I did not intend to make her struggle any more difficult, I placed the soul-stabilizing pill directly into Pooh's hand. Unable to wait a moment longer, Pooh swallowed it immediately. Her soul gradually stabilized, and the aura that had triggered Pooh's instincts dissipated along with it. Pooh's tense frame finally relaxed, and the insect-like chittering suppressed in her throat slowly faded into silence. I did not answer her question directly, choosing instead to counter with one of my own. "And what of you? Why have you chosen to remain in this place? With your abilities, going anywhere else would surely be far better than staying in Huangsao. Remaining here, you neither consume cultivators nor integrate into human life. This does not align with your logic for survival." This was an exceptionally incisive question, piercing straight to the core contradiction in her behavioral patterns, yet this time Pooh's cognitive process did not falter. She turned her head toward the dilapidated thatched hut where she had been taking shelter behind her, and then a single term surfaced from the nucleus of her consciousness. "Family." Hearing these 2 words, my interest was further piqued. "But you are not human." Upon hearing these words, she fell into a daze once more. In her understanding, the concept of family was an emotional bond born from blood ties and shared existence, possessing a high degree of altruism and self-sacrifice. Thus, it stood in complete opposition to her fundamental principle of putting. Looking at the bewildered, glitch-like expression on her face, I realized this powerful monster was actually quite simple-minded. Enough with the jokes, continue any further, and things might truly take a turn for the worse. I smiled. "Look, you are already acting in ways that defy your own logic. Is it so strange for me to do something out of character for once?" Fak could not retort. She could only stare at me, stunned. I looked toward Fak, signaling slightly toward the dilapidated thatched hut behind her. "Is your family inside?" Fak nodded, turned around, and walked toward the hut. I followed her inside in a flash. Upon entering the hut, a pungent scent of medicinal herbs and the stench of decay hit me. The interior was dim, illuminated only by a flickering oil lamp in the corner. An elderly woman lay on the earthen bed. Fak skillfully lifted a bowl of cold herbal medicine from beside the bed and began feeding her spoonful by spoonful. The old woman struggled to open her eyes. "Is that you, Fak, back home? Did you go to help the villagers again today?" Fak did not answer, merely repeating the mechanical action of feeding the medicine. The old woman seemed accustomed to her silence. "Good child, you remember what mother taught you about being a virtuous person, don't you?" She began to cough violently, and Fak reached out to pat her back. I stood to the side like a ghost that did not exist. I could sense that there was no blood relation between this old woman and Fak. My ghost realm had already spread out. From the fragmented rumors of the villagers outside, I had pieced together a portion of the truth. Many years ago, she had found Fak at the sandbar outside the village. At that time, Fak had just developed a rudimentary spirit, and half of her face still resembled a beetle. The villagers saw her as an omen of misfortune, but the old woman, feeling a connection through their shared suffering, defied the objections of the entire village to adopt her, treating her like her own daughter, teaching her how to speak and how to walk. Consequently, the old woman's family was gradually shunned by the rest of the village. A few months ago, Huangshawa village faced the ghost knocking at the door for the first time, and the first house targeted was that of the old woman. That night, her husband and son died tragically, only she in fact survived for reasons unknown. Overcome with grief, the old woman fell ill and could not rise from her bed. While the villagers did not openly ostracize them, Yet, they all instinctively believed that the disaster befalling the village had originated from the home of old Granny Chu, that it was an ill omen brought upon them by Fack. At that moment, Fack finished administering the medicine, then reached into her robes to produce a dried locust. She carefully broke it apart and fed the larger portion into old Granny Chu's mouth. Although old Granny Chu was curious as to how Fack managed to find a locust every single day, she never asked, choosing only to chew with great effort, her eyes filled with contentment and consolation. Fack, you should eat some yourself. I am old and can no longer stomach much. Fack said nothing, simply placing the remaining piece into her own mouth, chewing with an expressionless face. Having completed these tasks, she sat quietly by the bedside, motionless. I seized the opportunity to slip out and scout the perimeter, yet I discovered no significant clues regarding the door-knocking ghost. By the time I'd returned to Fack's thatched hut, the night had grown deep. Old Granny Chu was sound asleep, but Fack remained in the same posture as she had held during the day. Outside the house, the dull sound of knocking slowly began to echo. The flame of the oil lamp within the room flickered violently. Old Granny Chu, lying on the earth in bed, began to tremble uncontrollably. Fack suddenly raised her head, her eyes fixed intently upon the door. In the next second, Fack rose abruptly, and under my gaze of mild surprise, she strode toward the entrance. With a single motion, she pulled the latch. An aura of death and frigid malice instantly flooded the house. Outside the door stood a bizarre entity, stitched together from the remains of various corpses. I watched this scene with great interest. By all rights, the aura surrounding Fack was far more terrifying than that of the door-knocking ghost, yet after a brief moment of hesitation, the ghost did not flee. Instead, it reacted in a highly abnormal fashion. Its form began to shudder slightly. The ghostly aura surrounding it erupted in an instant, and a non-human roar emanated from the creature's body. Arms stitched together from gray mist elongated and contorted, transforming into two pitch-black razor-sharp claws that lunged directly toward Fack. Yet, in the face of this ferocious assault, Fack merely raised her slender, pale hand, and at the exact moment the claws were about to touch her face, she precisely seized the creature by its wrists. The intricate markings upon the right side of her face suddenly ignited with a brilliant light. A powerful surge of malevolent energy erupted along her arm, directly consuming and dissipating, the killing intent radiating from the knocking ghost. The very next second, the knocking ghost's body began to shrink violently, the stitched-on corpses peeling away one by one. At this moment, the knocking ghost, finally overcome with fear, letting out a piercing, miserable shriek, and exerting every ounce of its strength in a desperate attempt to escape, but Fack's pale hand held it firmly in a death grip. The knocking ghost abruptly twisted its body, forcefully wrenching itself free from Fack's grasp, then fled frantically out of the village without once looking back. My voice echoed behind it. Leaving is not going to be that easy. As those words left my lips, a bone spike pierced precisely into the back of the knocking ghost. Following that, the body of the knocking ghost detonated with a thunderous roar, scattering countless fragments of mangled corpses in every direction. At the epicenter of the explosion, waves of vengeful spirits were revealed, only to be immediately absorbed by the bone spike. I looked into the inventory control panel. After being absorbed by the bone spike, the knocking ghost lay dormant there before being quickly dismantled by the ghost fire currently clearing the inventory. You have obtained a Tier 3 soul crystal. My eyebrows arched slightly. To think that a single ghostly entity could yield so many soul fragments. A Tier 3 existence, this level of strength is truly formidable. Many demonic creatures that occupy entire counties only reach the second or third tier. What prompted me even more was that this thing was composed of countless gathered vengeful spirits, making it fundamentally incapable of communication. Yet its actions possessed clear purpose and rules obviously controlled by a human hand. Who could possess such ruthless methods to refine a ghost of this caliber, and yet merely use it to harm ordinary people every night? Is the cost of such an endeavor not far too great? One must know that I am capable of controlling a Tier 3 white bone ghost, yet its base strength rivals that of a Tier 5 origin stage expert. The individual behind the control of a Tier 3 knocking ghost must also be of no low standing. With such power, the flesh and blood of ordinary mortals would have a very limited effect on advancing one's cultivation. Yet the knocking ghost clearly possessed the strength to slaughter the entire village at will, but instead it only claimed one life each night. However, I swiftly retracted my divine sense, my gaze falling once more upon Fax standing at the entrance. She stood there in silence, staring in the direction where the ghost knocking at the door had vanished, her heterochromatic eyes still clouded with an indecipherable confusion. This night had brought forth far too much conflicting information for her to process. I said nothing further. My figure flickered, vanishing from the house, traversing the secret realm, and returning to Prince City. I immediately issued an order for Jian Huai Chong to arrive, so that he might accompany me into the secret realm. Upon dragging him back to Shikan village, I looked toward Jian Huai Chong. The ghostly entities here are numerous. You shall guide me through this place to exorcise these demons and slay these spirits. The primary focus is that their quality is exceptionally high. Do you understand my intentions? Jian Huai Chong immediately accepted the command, and I watched leisurely as his silhouette faded into the distance. I began to calculate. A single ghost knocking at the door can yield 1,000 units of Tier 2 soul essence, enough to directly fulfill the soul progress required for the altar of sacrifice. The blood pond can generate blood, The zombie secret realm primarily produces flesh and blood, yet soul material alone lacks a reliable method of production, making it the most scarce resource at present. I only hope that the heavens favor Kushi County, that there may be a few more of these ghost knocking at the door entities for me to reap a substantial harvest. I have decided to turn Kushi County upside down, but before that, I must return to the altar to perform the upgrade. Afterward, I return to the core of Prince City. The altar of the evil god was constructed from layer upon layer of bleached bones. Once I had filled all the necessary progress bars for the upgrade, I activated the ritual of sacrifice. In an instant, the entirety of Prince City trembled as a result. The bone altar erupted with a brilliant silver-white light, and the bone engravings on its surface began to glow in succession, forming a vast and complex array of malevolent intent. A terrifying aura 100 times more potent than before surged forth with a roar from my very being. The system interface shifted accordingly. Current level, upgraded to initial form of the evil god's physical vessel. Awakened, evil god's faith received 1000 evil god points. New abilities awakened, bone reincarnation and bone corruption. Building shop list updated, becoming the great evil god. Let us continue to ascend. The upgrade was complete. I sensed a majestic power surging within my body, far exceeding anything I had known before. Yet I felt little joy. Instead, I clicked my tongue and thought a single level of advancement required 10 units of Tier 3 materials, which, when converted into ordinary living beings, equates to 1 billion lives. Once again, I lamented that the path of the evil god is by no means easy. Had it not been for the fortuitous encounter with high-quality resources like the ghost knocking at the door, relying solely on the lowly undead souls within this secret realm, there is no telling how many years or months it would have taken to accumulate enough strength. Calming my mind, I began to thoroughly examine the new abilities I had acquired. The white bone incarnation allows for the coagulation of an avatar slightly weaker than the original body, serving as an extension and manifestation of my bone-based power. White bone erosion allows me to convert a sliver of my death essence into a seed of bone, planting it within the consciousness of a sentient being, to proceed with mental corruption and spiritual decay. Both techniques are formidable. To a certain extent, they compensate for my previous shortcomings. White bone incarnation grants me at last a potent method for proactive assault, ensuring I no longer need to rely entirely on ghost servants and representatives like Shitou or Jian Huai Chong. White bone erosion bolsters my magical attacks on a mental plane. This is how it should be. How could one be called an evil god if they cannot manipulate the hearts of men? I am immensely satisfied. Following this, I open the newly awakened evil god faith panel. 321 individuals, each providing 1 evil god point daily. Most of these people are villagers I have rescued or those who have heard of my divine miracles, harboring a sense of gratitude, yet their faith remains shallow, liable to fade at any moment due to the passage of time or other external factors. Primary followers, 58 individuals providing 5 evil god points. Their faith is somewhat profound, capable of performing simple prayers, yet they do not view the white bone divine sovereign as their sole sanctuary. True believers, 7 individuals providing 20 evil god points, represented by the core villagers of Daliang Village. Their faith is quite steadfast, ready to perform tasks for their deity. Fanatical followers, 2 individuals providing 100 evil god points, Shitou and Hongling. They view me as their only solace in the darkness. Their faith is reverent, they are devout followers. 1 individual provides 500 evil god points. It is Jian Huai Chong who has completely fused his own conviction with his loyalty toward me, prepared to sacrifice everything for the will of his god. Upon reviewing these items, I fell into deep contemplation. It seems that expanding my influence will be a protracted process requiring meticulous management. I proceeded to inspect the construction blueprints. The recent upgrade has unlocked quite a number of new structures. The bone forging workshop can consume materials and evil god points to forge standard weapons or strengthen the bones of bone servants. The Wraith Watchtower is used for guarding. By positioning them at the perimeter of the ghost realm, they can detect and attack any invading spirit-type entities. The Soul Gathering Well slowly collects the wandering soul energy from the surrounding environment. It increases the stored soul energy by a small amount each day, and as it is a yellow-grade structure, the material cost is negligible, so even if its utility is limited, I decided to build one regardless. It serves as quite an aesthetically pleasing decoration within my territory. Among these, I have already constructed Wraith Watchtowers to completely encircle the Prince's city. Within the list of structures, one special building caught my attention above all else, the Flesh-Blood Pasture. With its special skill, proliferation of flesh and blood, it can be used to breed and cultivate specialized biological entities intended for sacrificial offerings. By investing evil god points, one can accelerate their reproduction and mutation, resulting in the production of higher quality flesh and blood materials. The flesh produced by this pasture contains a faint aura of the evil god, offering a slightly higher efficiency for sacrifices than ordinary flesh. My eyes lit up. This is a fine treasure, essentially a sustainable production base for flesh and blood materials. Although it requires an investment of evil god points, in the long run it will greatly alleviate the pressure of sourcing such materials. Currently, with my continued advancement, the output from a single secret realm has begun to fall short of my requirements. Finally, I turned my attention to the shop. The newly added inventory was incredibly rich, with most items requiring evil god points to purchase. A Tier 1 Faith Talisman can slightly increase a designated target's inclination toward me. The boundary-breaking awl is a one-time use item capable of opening a short-lived passage through weak barriers. The enhanced version of the mutation seed possesses stronger effects than the bone seeds I condensed myself, and it features a higher degree of concealment. The Ghost Realm expansion certificate, once used, allows the boundaries of the Ghost Realm to expand by 1 level. I ran a quick calculation. My followers can 451 evil god points each day. While it may seem like a large sum, when compared to the thousands or even tens of thousands of points required by the shop and construction projects, not to mention future demands, it remains woefully insufficient. Just as I was silently lamenting this, I sensed a commotion erupting from within the Weeping Cavern. I was somewhat puzzled. I had only just dealt with the ghost knocking at the door, and now that it is past midnight, why are so many villagers still awake? Do they not intend to work tomorrow? Whose loss is this? Within the Wailing Cavern, Hung Yak felt that the past 2 days had been nothing short of a nightmare. Ever since he was cast into this wretched, miserable cave, his world had been reduced to only 2 tasks: swinging a pickaxe and enduring constant, suffocating surveillance. He was now no better than a mortal laborer, repeating the act of excavation without respite. Though his body felt no fatigue, his spirit was truly on the verge of collapse due to the relentless, omnipresent gaze fixed upon him. They were not guarded by living beings, but by eerie, pallid paper effigies. These paper constructs all claimed to be disciples of the Sword Sect. They were silently distributed throughout every corner of the cavern. No matter what one was doing, the moment one looked up, one would inevitably lock eyes with those crudely painted, unblinking gazes. Just a moment ago, he had been straining to excavate a stubborn slab of ore, sweat dripping down his forehead and stinging his eyes. He wiped his face with his sleeve in frustration, and as his peripheral vision flickered, his heart skipped a beat. A paper effigy had drifted behind him at some unknown moment. Hung Yak shuddered and whipped his head around, only to see the paper effigy tilting its head to observe him. It warned, "Do not even think about slacking off. Our senior brother has instructed us to watch you closely." Hung Yak was shaken to his core, thinking, this is grave. Not even a stray dog could endure this god-forsaken place. I must escape tonight. At the stroke of midnight, when everyone was utterly exhausted, the area outside the cavern suddenly descended into a commotion. Swarms of eerie emerald ghost fires drifted inward, illuminating the entirety of the mineshaft. Following this, a group of villagers wearing uniform attire entered, directing them to transport the ore outside. It seemed a grand operation was underway in the city, and in order to curry favor with the overseer, everyone scrambled to volunteer their assistance. The scene became chaotic and disorderly in an instant, and Hong Yak's heart hammered against his ribs. This was the moment. He blended into the crowd of laborers carrying materials, bowing his head and mimicking the desperate, sycophantic behavior of the other prisoners. Following the flow of the crowd, he stepped out of this suffocating cavern for the very first time. His eyes were fixed intently upon the darkness in the distance, toward the edge of the city walls. He shoved the materials from his shoulder onto a prisoner standing beside him. Taking advantage of the chaos as everyone plunged into the surrounding darkness, he prepared to slip away when a piercing shout shattered the air. "Stop right there, you black-robed scoundrel. Stand your ground." Xingyu's heart sank. He turned back only to see a corpulent supervisor pointing directly at him. With spittle flying as the man bellowed, Xingyue panicked, losing all sense of direction, and fled as fast as his legs could carry him. All of his captured magical artifacts had been confiscated, and the night was so dark that he could only run blindly through the unfamiliar city like a headless fly. "Someone is escaping," shout instantly sent the entire worksite into an uproar. Everyone dropped the tools in their hands, shouting loudly, "Find someone who can report this to the authorities in Wangzi City. Go quickly and inform Lady Hongling that he ran toward that side. Pursue him at once." Hearing the clamor drawing closer behind him, Xingyo felt as if he were burning with anxiety. In his panic, he dashed into a field. A faint crunch echoed beneath his feet, as if he had snapped something in two. Before he could react, pairs of crimson eyes suddenly ignited in the surrounding darkness. Several black snakes shot out like lightning, each raising its head to flick its tongue at him in a fury. "Who goes there? You've trampled on my brethren. Xiao-san, go fetch the big sister." A small black snake, appearing the most cunning of them all, vanished in a flash toward the edge of the field. Xingwei never imagined that demon snakes farming the land could be so fiercely dedicated to their duties. He attempted to run, but those small black snakes swarmed him. They did not bite, but coiled their supple bodies tightly around his calves, pinning him so he could not take another step. At that very moment, the vitriolic scolding of Zhang Suigu echoed from afar. "Which miserable wretch has the audacity to touch my treasures? I will skin you alive." Before her words had even faded, she caught sight of Xingyue entangled by the small snakes, as well as the spirit herb crushed beneath his feet. She erupted in a rage. "You piece of trash! You dare to trample upon the Lord's spirit field? You look like a human, yet you behave with such immorality, stooping to petty theft. Do you not know that this spirit field is a divine treasure bestowed by the Lord?" Xingyue let out a cold snort. Unable to break the bindings on his legs, he struck out with a palm toward Zhang Suigu's chest. "Get out of my way." Facing this palm strike, which he was certain would secure his victory, Zhang Quigu did not even bother to dodge. She simply countered with a punch of her own. The clash between palm and fist emitted a dull, heavy thud. Hung Ye was instantly sent flying backward, vomiting a large mouthful of fresh blood. Lying on the ground, Hongyu's face was etched with sheer disbelief. A peak second stage cultivator only a single step away from the third stage spirit eye realm. How could a mere peasant farmer possess the cultivation base of a peak second stage expert? Does this make any sense? Zhang Kuigu brushed off her hands and scoffed. With these pathetic amateur martial arts of yours, you dare to stir up trouble in Wangzi City? Where is everyone? No, where is the snake? Bind this little thief for me and hand him over to the master for judgment. Upon receiving the order, the small black snake scrambled over and tightly bound Hong Yue. Hearing the commotion, the villagers returned one by one, working together to escort him before me. Zhang Kuigu approached me, weeping and pouring out her grievances. Master, you must seek justice for us. It is this thief. Not only did he attempt to escape from the cave, but he also trampled one of your precious spirit mushrooms. That is your treasure, which we have tended to with great care every day, never neglecting it for a single moment. My gaze fell upon Hong Yue. Why would you do such a thing? Hong Yue closed his eyes and spat. Kill me or carve me up as you please. Do not expect me to beg. I, Hong Yue, will never bow my head to evil beings like you. I stepped forward, looking down at Hong Yue from above. Who gave you the audacity to speak to me this way? Hong Yue suddenly opened his eyes, a raging fire of fury burning within his crimson gaze. This place is a den of wicked beings who harm the innocent. I, Hong Yue, as a Xuanshui guard, exterminating demons and evil is my sacred duty. I only regret that my cultivation is insufficient, leaving me unable to sever the head of a demonic overlord like you with my blade. I gestured in a circle, indicating the villagers who stood there wearing expressions of indignation. You claim that I harm people? Open your eyes wide and look. Have I ever taken the life of anyone in this place? Hang Yu was rendered speechless, momentarily at a loss for words. I saved the people of Daliang village and Shidong. They revere me as a god, for I transformed the refugees into the White Jade City, granting them a place to build their lives and find refuge. I eradicated the demons of the county, restoring peace and order to these lands. I paused for a moment. Even for those of you who call yourselves the Xuanshui guards, I merely forced you to toil in the mines to atone for your transgressions, never once taking your lives. These words were spoken with unwavering resolve and heroic conviction. The surrounding villagers watched Hong Yue, their gazes shifting from indignation to contempt and hostility. Hang Yo's face flushed with deep crimson. Nonsense, you Taxisui are nothing but a silver-tongued devil. If you had not used demonic arts to bewitch them, how could they willingly sacrifice their lives for you? You dare claim you have never harmed anyone? Then what of the fall of White Jade City? Does that not involve you? I shook my head. The fate of White Jade City was of Baiyu's own doing. He has now been absorbed by the Sword of Huai, and I have accepted the karmic burden for his actions. However, the former residents of White Jade City are currently living quite well within Wangzi City. These words once again left Hong Yue speechless, his lips trembling. It must be that you used dark arts to twist their minds, using illusions to enchant them, causing them to treat their enemy as their father, distorting truth and reality. Hearing this, a strange smile crept across my face. You are quite right, I do possess such power. Would you care to test it? As I finished speaking, a sinister light flickered in my eyes, and a seed of white bone embedded itself between Hong Yue's brows. Hong Yue felt only a slight chill between his eyebrows, followed by nothing else. He looked at me with suspicion, uncertain of what trick I had performed. However, in the very next moment, a voice echoed within his mind. The escape has failed, we are doomed, no one is coming to save us. The city lord has surely abandoned us. The glory of the Shishui guards is nothing more than a joke. These voices gnawed frantically at his will. Hang Yue's eyes began to glaze over, and cold sweat beaded upon his forehead. It is not like this, my voice resonated in his ears. Tell me your true purpose. You are so desperate to escape, for what reason? If you confess truthfully, you may yet survive. Hang Yue's tense body suddenly went limp, and his eyes lost all focus. I wanted to flee back to Lantau City, to report to the city lord. Baiyu City is merely along the way. Our primary mission is to investigate the strange poison appearing across multiple districts. The victims suffer a wretched death, their bodies stiffen, and their skin takes on an antique bronze hue, resembling the statues within a temple. We have been in pursuit for months, and every lead points toward the legend of the necropolis of the undead. Upon uttering the final few words, Hong Yue completely lost consciousness and fell into a coma. The moment he collapsed, Guiwo silently stepped forward, dragging him into the prison of the secret realm. I pondered the clues he left behind before succumbing to his unconscious state, only to find that the death aura lingering within the bronze-colored corpses and the poison spreading across the districts pointed directly toward the necropolis. The machinations hidden behind this are far more formidable than the combined threats of Baiyu and the ghost knocking at the door. The lanterns and torches in Wangzi City remained brightly lit. Within the spirit fields, Lady Zhongsui was directing the black serpent to repair the spiritual mushrooms that had been trampled. The blood bodhi vines swayed and glowed in the night breeze. Inside the lamenting cavern, the paper effigies were mining in an orderly fashion. The sounds of labor from Su Jiwan's group intertwined with the clanging of ore. Outside the city, Shitou and Hongling led their followers to purge the remnants of the paper-armored demons, their blades shining coldly under the moonlight, as villages along the path submitted one after another, the energy of their faith constantly pouring toward the evil god, facing the rat that scurried over while gnawing on a piece of golden-brown garlic-braised snake meat. This poison sounds troublesome. Shall the great rat master conduct an investigation? I shook my head with a faint smile. My white bone incarnation having already condensed behind me, there is no need. It is the perfect time to test this new ability. With a flick of my finger, the white bone seeds flew into the bodies of the scouts who had awakened their reconnaissance talents, scattering throughout the city to scan for traces of the strange poison. I commanded that anyone who had come into contact with suspicious individuals or objects must report it immediately. The spatial rift leading to the zombie secret realm continues to expand. The ghost knocking at the door in Shikan village has been completely eradicated by Jian Huai Chong, and while soul materials fill the storehouse, it is still insufficient to reach the required fraction for the next level. Furthermore, deep within Kushi County, the origin of the ghost knocking at the door, guarded by Nipa at Huangshawa, appears to share a secret connection with this strange poison. I stood atop the altar of white bones as the ghost domain expanded, shrouding the entirety of Wangzi City. The prayers of the believers transformed into a formidable power. The prophecy of the Golden Buddha's manifestation, the 10-bone beast arriving from afar, and now the added mystery of this strange poison. The secrets of this world are being unveiled layer by layer. I lowered my voice to issue the decree, sending the notification down. In 3 days we march upon Lantau City. Since the clues have brought themselves to my doorstep, this deity shall seize the opportunity to uproot this nest entirely and proceed to annex the entirety of Tiandao District into the territory of Wangzi City. The altar erupted in fluorescent light, and the progress of the sacrifice began to surge. The path of expansion belonging to the evil god has